Where's the talent?
Pennsylvania is a black hole, Jake. There's no escape from the Chester County Blues.
Welcome to the Life After College podcast, everybody.
Jake and Herman featuring Peter and Ryan. Let's give it up.
Dude, you stressed?
Why am I stressed?
I don't know.
Why would I be stressed?
You sound a little stressed. Like 20% stressed.
I'm not stressed.
Oh, a hug?
What's life
Talk
without-
about Adam Sandler movies?
what's life without like a
Let's go through
10% stress?
let's go through some
Right?
decent lyrics.
keeps you on your toes.
All right, I think we sound great. I'm gonna de-headphone here.
All right.
Oh.
All
Oh.
right, here we go.
Oh.
That's weird. That's weird.
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
Doing good. Doing good. Glad to be back on the Life After College podcast.
All right.
This is my favorite podcast I've ever appeared on. Excited.
Oh, snap.
Jerk.
All right. Well,
I mean, for me, I think it's pretty interesting because two of my earliest life memories revolve around movies. And that would be summer of 1987. I remember my dad holding me in his hands, like in his arms, and walking around Kmart in Pennsylvania. And he picked up the VHS box for Phantasm. And was super enthusiastic and was like, Pete, you need to see this movie. It's great. It's got this Amy Kuda. And I mean, I probably can barely understand what he said. I could probably barely talk at the time. But I remember him showing me that movie that day and being horrified. Like, for years, I couldn't even look at the VHS cover, the artwork. Like, it would just send me into, like, hysterical crying. And years later, of course, I overcame that fear. It became my favorite movie, kind of my favorite thing. Another very, like, profound memory is being 4 years old, so a year later in 1988. And my dad sitting me down yet again and saying, Pete, I taped this movie for you. It's about these street gangs. They're running around New York City, and there's dudes with baseball bats and spray paint. Like, you got to watch this. And, like, literally, like, sat 4-year-old Peter down in front of the TV, put in the tape that he had taped the night before, and that movie was, of course, The Warriors.
As a dad, what kind of don't tell mom rapping went on that conversation?
I remember my mom leaving this is like maybe 3 years after this. I was probably 7. I remember my mom leaving for like some kind of like PTA meeting or something. And I remember her being like, don't show them like the stuff that you show them. My dad was like, yeah, no problem. Door shuts. My dad's like, Pete, you got to see this movie.
Don't tell Mom.
It's about a Cuban gangster in Miami. And that movie was, of course, Scarface. That's another profound one because that's still a favorite movie of mine.
Yeah.
Like, I love that movie and started buying posters of it, like pre-MTV Cribs, like rap kind of Scarface.
Yeah.
Like, back in the early 90s, it was considered like this sort of underrated cult movie.
Back when it was a film and not a way of life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
I remember entering.
Also a really interesting movie because it's a gateway movie. And I think a lot of kids, it might be the first violent movie they see as tweens. And you remember it so fondly, and then when you watch it again as an adult, it's not that great of a movie. It's
I disagree. 45 minutes too short. I want 45 minutes more of.
be prefaced with the fact that you have the world's most forgiving film critic in the house.
This is true.
We talked about that last.
Face. I mean, it has an enduring quality, and I think, like, your point of view of that's not a good movie, but I feel like we could probably meet in the middle is the Al Pacino performance.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Like,
he straight up Denzel'd it, where he turned what should have been a very mediocre movie into a cult classic with.
I don't think so, because I think you could say, well, does Tony Montana have Michael Corleone in
Yeah.
the character? You know what I mean? So, I mean, he's definitely played gangsters, but I think if you take the Godfather series, take Scarface, then take something like Donnie Brasco, I mean, they're three different roles. Like it wouldn't be fair to say, oh, yeah, you're just playing the same guy over and over again. Like, those are three totally different characters. But yeah, I watched Scarface as recently as maybe 8 or 9 months ago, and for me, it still holds up.
Suspect.
Suspect.
It's been a while, but I would watch that again for sure.
And a great Scarface thing is when the video game came out, you actually get to. It starts at the end shootout in the movie, and you survive the shootout.
And they recorded fresh dialogue, if I'm not mistaken, right?
believe
Like
so,
there
yeah.
is actual writing associated with the
Yeah.
video game.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
You kind of start from the ground level again as Tony Montana, and then like rise up through the ranks.
So that you you basically change the ending of the movie.
Yeah.
I remember when that came out. My buddies who were actually into video games, they were super excited about it. And yeah, it was. I remember that being a big deal. It was like.
Older than you guys, and you had a different experience with movie video games, where some of the movie video games when you guys were teenagers and younger were actually decent. And my whole experience with movie video games was just like you'd love a movie and you'd be like, I can't wait to get the video game. This is going to be so awesome. And they were just 100% of the time awful.
Like The Goonies too?
Yes.
Those were
The Atari ET game, right? That's
Right,
like
Landfill.
There's a documentary
Yeah.
about how bad that is.
Really?
Yeah, and they would usually just be kind of platformers where they glued the characters on. So you'd have like Batman, the video game, and you'd have a Batarang, and then you'd have the same game as Die Hard, the video game, and he'd be just Bruce Willis up, but it would be the same game where it was like jump, shoot, walk forward.
Okay.
So they were pretty catastrophically bad when I was a kid.
I didn't even know they've been doing them that long.
Oh yeah.
I've
Worth putting some money into them. And,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Excellent. Well, all right. So that's a lot of Scarface talk,
Yeah.
which isn't a bad thing because great,
Brian De Palma,
great movie.
one of the goats.
Who?
Brian De Palma, director of Scarface.
See, I learned something today.
There you go, man.
Well, thanks for that segue because I wanted to touch on directors, and if we get to it, just in general, the different roles within a movie, your directors, your producers, your editors, all this, and kind of get each of your takes on directors of the past, present, and maybe upcoming directors in the film world, and sort of the differences between them. You guys throw out names because I don't know any, and then sort of the challenges they faced in their times. Obviously, in the past, it's the special effects and CGI was non-existent or limited, and but there's also a trade-off. Like, what are the challenges today that they didn't have before? So
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just throw out some of my favorite directors. I'm
Sure.
sure we'll probably meet some common ground here. But
Mhm.
Martin Scorsese, Brian De Palma, as I just mentioned,
Mhm.
Quentin Tarantino, Paul Schrader, John Carpenter is a favorite of mine.
what are some of his movies?
The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China, They Live,
Yeah.
Vampires. I mean, the list just goes on and on. The Fog. He has a very if you take his body of work from when he started up until his most recent film, which I don't even remember. What's his most recent film? Ghost of Mars, maybe?
I don't think I've seen
Or
anything.
I think he made a movie about a decade ago. I forget what it was called.
That's the last one I
It's-
knew I went and saw
Yeah.
because of him.
Yeah.
Though.
But it's just a very interesting body of work. There's a lot of, his kind of trademarks are throughout, but tackles on different stories and always does it in an interesting way.
Okay.
You want to throw out one that you like?
Yeah, let's go back a little bit. And I think one of the most influential directors for me is Akira Kurosawa.
Okay.
And if you go back and look at some of his old movies from Japan, you can see them as modern movies today. If you watch The Seven Samurai, if you watch Yojimbo, even he made an 80s movie called Ran. And you see a lot of the same camera techniques today, a lot of the same. Spielberg was heavily influenced by Kurosawa, George Lucas.
That whole 70s crew, right?
Yeah, where they grew up watching this guy's movies. And so you can watch a movie, I think Seven Samurai is from like 1950 or 1951, and it could have been made today. I mean, it's that everything is modern and current, and the editing is just super, super tight. If you watch a lot of older
What year?
movies,
What year was that made?
I think 50, 51.
Yeah, we could look it up.
Yeah.
But it's definitely around that time, and I can attest to this because I saw Kurosawa's Yojimbo about a month ago from a 35 millimeter print on a big screen in a pretty much sold out movie house, and it was great. Audience loved it. It just, like you're saying, with the editing and like the camera techniques, totally lasting until today for sure.
So he was sort of ahead of his time.
Very
In that
ahead of its
sense.
time, I would say.
Yeah. So a lot of older movies, a lot of older great movies are sort of like film versions of books, and they can have very interesting twists and turns, but their pacing is really uneven. And then Kurosawa was kind of the first one to hit on the beginning, the 3-act structure, and starting to take Greek storytelling and turning that into the film format. And as soon as he did, people were just like, all right, oh, this is what we were supposed to be doing all along, and this is how we're going to do it. So he's both one of my favorite directors, and he's also probably the most important director. When I talk about my favorite directors, I have directors that I've loved every one of their movies that I definitely would not say are among the best directors. Robert Rodriguez, Antoine Fuqua. These are all modern guys that are making just great movie after great movie. They're always good movies, but they're not, Akira Kurosawa was inventing stuff. Steven Spielberg was twisting things and making them like perfect. You watch the Coen Brothers movies, and they're doing things with unrealistic dialogue and framing, and Wes Anderson's another one who's doing really auteur level stuff. But for me, the big influencers are my favorite directors because I love going back and watching them. Another great one is Stanley Kubrick, as featured on Pete's shirt. A lot of folks have seen his bigger movies. They've seen The Shining. They've seen Full Metal Jacket. Maybe
Clockwork Orange,
Doctor Strangelove, A Clockwork Orange. But his lesser movies are hugely influential because every kid that goes to film school that becomes a studio director is watching all of them. So,
Is, like the moon landing. I heard that's a pretty big.
it's the greatest thing we've ever done as a species.
It was.
And it's real. Stop it, Herman.
I'm just
Agreed.
instigating Ryan as well. Don't worry about it.
You can bring us back for the conspiracy,
Yeah.
Life After College conspiracy podcast. Well,
I don't want to get on any
we'll tear it
lists
up.
there, Peter.
Well, I'm already on the field, so
Well,
what
yeah.
are you gonna do?
But for me, when you're talking about like the roles that different people on a movie play, I think this is a great moment to talk about that because you have filmmakers and then you have studios, and a filmmaker is going to act as their own producer, is going to act as their own director, their writer, usually going to be heavily involved with the editing process. But if you guys both follow sports, to think about a movie in a studio environment, the producer is going to be sort of like your general manager. They're going to pull all the pieces together. They're going to hire the coaching staff. They're going to suggest players. They might even sign the players. The director is the head coach. So when it's actual game time, they run the show. They're in charge. They're making sure that everything is perfect throughout. And then your actors and your skill professions are sort of like the players that are on the court, and they're expected to perform, but they kind of come in and then they leave. So you have filmmakers who are also directors, and then you have directors who are directing something that was written by someone else, produced by someone else. It's basically someone else's project, and then they're brought in as a hired gun.
Like the, I don't want to say enforcer, but just they execute.
Well, you're still expected, I think, as a director to bring a strong creative vision and style to something. A great example that I think Pete and I have talked about a lot is the difference between Goodfellas and Casino. So Casino is a Martin Scorsese movie. It's his through and through from beginning to end.
He wrote it.
It's his picture. I mean, he was even in the room while it was edited for the most part. Whereas Goodfellas is another great movie and a very similar movie, but Goodfellas he directed. And he was still, very involved. It's still very much one of his films. And it's his, but it's a little bit different. And you can hear his voice more in Casino because he controlled it from beginning to end. So, when you're talking about directors are incredibly, incredibly important, but filmmakers, it's sort of a different category, even though they have the same name.
All right. I'm curious if you guys would know the name. There's the editor, a woman that's worked with Martin Scorsese forever.
Thelma.
Yeah, Thelma.
Thelma?
Schoonmaker.
Yeah. I listened to, I'm going to plug one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. It's Alec Baldwin's Here's a Thing. And he interviewed her. And it was riveting. Like, you learn so much about just filmmaking in general, but especially about Martin Scorsese, some of the movies they worked on, and just the process and the work, and just the development through filmmaking from when they started, and actually like cutting strips of film to what it is today, and some of the old school techniques he still uses. So it was really interesting. I recommend everyone watch it.
That interview
or
was
listen
great.
to it.
I don't think I, even as someone who edits almost every day, realized how physical that process was until I heard that interview. That's a great, great interview.
Yeah. So highly recommended. Yes. So really quick on Stanley Kubrick. You mentioned some of his movies, Full Metal Jacket, Clockwork Orange. What's the other one that you mentioned I saw? But a lot of the ones that I'm thinking of that I've seen are twisted in a way. And is that sort of his shtick, or does he have a wide range? Again, I've probably seen more movies of his that I just don't know, because I don't pair directors and movies as much as you guys.
Did you say The Shining? Is that
The Shining?
Okay.
Yeah. So, what would you say there? Like, is there a difference between directors that stick to one type of genre, or I don't want to say style, but like I said, twisted, versus directors that'll be all over the place, go drama, action, comedy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best directors can go across those genres.
Mhm.
I mean, I think Scorsese does it great. I think Spielberg's probably one of the best examples. You know, we often talk about like just the full body of work of Spielberg. And if you kind of go through those films, I mean, there's like sort of different eras. He tackles different genres. I mean, it's the same person that made The Adventures of Tintin made Schindler's List. When you think about it.
Yeah.
And the same person that made Indiana Jones and The Temple of Doom made Munich. And when you just have a filmography like that, and we just named 4 of, I think, I don't know. I'm trying to think how many films he's done.
It's got to be in the 20s or 30s, right?
Yeah, it's got to be in the 30s.
Yeah.
It's just, it's such an impressive catalog of work.
And being successful in all of them.
Yeah.
All those different types. So,
And you definitely also have directors that just keep hitting the same note over and over and over again, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I think a great example of that is M. Night Shyamalan, where every one of his movies is a premise, a surprise, and then a twist. And some of them are just great, great films.
yes.
And some of them are garbage.
Like
and
the movie The Visit, which I think came out like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
My jaw literally dropped at the twist. Like literally like.
Yeah. I don't remember that one coming out.
But then I saw his most recent film Glass, and I was just kind of like.
No.
that was the most
I was a bit of a
frustrating movie of
snooze, yeah.
2018.
That's
The
too
most
bad.
frustrating movie.
Yeah.
Because the first hour of that movie was just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
That's,
and then
that's with the guy that was in the Bending Bullets movie. What's his name? That actor. He who played the
McAvoy,
McAvoy, and
Bruce Willis,
Bruce. Okay,
Sarah Paulson.
it looked.
So, I mean, it's
it
like-
looked good.
It's the ingredients for a great movie, and it just. I mean, we had waited almost 20 years for an Unbreakable sequel, and it's
Can-
kind of like this is what we got. This is what we waited for.
Is it supposed to be a sequel?
Yeah.
Oh,
Can we
Direct
just
sequel.
call a quick timeout? He has the same thing that Herman has. He just referred to James McAvoy as the actor from X-Men First Class.
no.
Herman is famous because you're talking about the bending bullet scene in the X-Men where he's killing JFK. As like,
No, that's the one with Angelina Jolie.
oh, even better.
What was that movie called?
I know, and I've seen
Yeah,
a
it's
million
like
times.
the
it's a
bullet
great
bending
That's a
movie.
fun
Yeah.
movie.
The bullet
I love
Yeah.
that movie.
Yeah.
But like Herman,
assassin,
you'll
like
be
the
talking about
assassin or
like
something?
Bruce Willis, and he'll be like, "Oh, the guy from Hudson Hawk."
No,
I thought you
it
were
would
about
be.
the Bruce Willis, like the guy that's in the office building with the shirt.
The Christmas movie.
No, it's Steve Buscemi, the guy from the, like Mr. Deeds, who has like the crazy
yes.
eyes.
That's
Got
one
the
of my
lipstick, Billy Madison.
Yeah.
The hit list.
one of my favorite things about Herman, and I was like, "Oh, Jake's got it too. This is awesome. This is wonderful."
That's great.
I've seen many mediocre movies, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah,
It's my go-to.
I mean
thing.
that's like the classic. I watch my movies based on renting them from supermarkets. Like I was there. I lived that life.
I mean,
I ran out of movies to
Netflix
watch.
signed Adam Sandler to like a 10-picture deal for you.
You're welcome, Mr. Sandler.
we're gonna. I want to get into Netflix and streaming services eventually. But I remember we looked up one time. We were hanging out. We just looked up how much is Steven Spielberg worth. It's just stupid. It's just
Yeah.
My
Hundreds
guess
of
would be like
millions.
400 million or something.
Yeah, it's in the hundreds of
probably not
millions, like
even-
upper
I know.
But
hundreds
it's
of millions.
probably
I'm
not
pretty
from his
sure-
movies. He might be a billionaire. Don't
Yeah.
forget when DreamWorks started, he was one of the 3 guys who started DreamWorks. So
Yeah.
DreamWorks
Yeah,
was
it was-
originally called DreamWorks SKG, and it was Spielberg, Geffen, and who was the K? I forget. But
Kathleen Kennedy?
no,
No.
they were all from different.
Like
He was the
major-
movie guy, music guy. Yeah. So
I remember it being a
Katzenberg.
billion in the
Yeah,
billion.
Yeah.
I think Katzenberg.
I
Yeah.
remember it being in the billions and just being like, "This is."
But he probably,
absurd.
it's one of
It's
those
great.
weird things like 50 Cent making all his money from vitamin water, where Steven Spielberg probably didn't make most of his money from his movies.
Yeah.
Probably made it from the production company.
He
Yeah.
just does it for fun. All right, you got
Yeah, I have a bajillion questions for these guys. Have you guys? I wanted to go back a little bit and talk about if you guys have ever made any movies yourselves, or if
Or
you're
are
currently
planning
in the
to.
process of doing it.
You want to take it or you want me to go first?
I wrote a feature-length script and
boy.
tried to produce it in the mid-90s, and we got about 10 minutes of it filmed, and it was totally bootstrapped and just friends filming it. And the amount of work it took to film and edit 10 minutes of it, and then watching it as a cold viewer and going, this is not good, that made me stop.
Oh,
But
okay.
I want to do it again.
My second to last semester of college, I took a directed independent study, and I made a 51-minute movie, like a dark coming-of-age movie. And it was one of just the most, like, stressful but fun, like, 3.5, 4-week periods of my life. Because, I mean, I was a full-time college student. I worked, but here I am, like, up all night, like, literally making a movie.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun, but I never understood when directors or actors would talk about like, not wanting to watch their movies after they were finished. Like I never understood that. I'd be like, if I made a movie, I would just watch it all the time, and like I can barely go back.
I think
and-
they're
and
lying.
Watch that movie. You
I think
feel?
they're lying a ton. A ton of them are lying. Yeah.
Like-
Whenever
like-
an actor's
I
like,
would agree.
when Harrison Ford's like, I've never seen Star Wars. I'm like, you've seen Star Wars, Harrison Ford. Come on. Like, who do you think you're fooling? You probably watched The Fugitive on a loop.
Like De Niro's really at home rooting himself on a Goodfellas.
He's like, you're going to do it this time.
It'd be like a song, like you writing a song and playing with the band and all the process of recording and like the
Yeah.
demos and all that stuff, and then not wanting to hear it. Like that just sounds so foreign to me.
It's funny. I actually recall Ray Liotta talking about not watching Goodfellas.
Lariota.
Yeah, Ray Liotta. Oh my god. So I remember him talking about seeing it at the premiere and like during like the kind of premiere like circuit that they did with the press and stuff, but not actually going back to watch it and flipping around the channels one night and catching it on cable and watching the entire movie and almost feeling like it was like an out of body experience. Like he wasn't watching himself act; it was like watching a totally like different thing. And I feel like I've seen similar things to people who have worked on Scorsese's films.
That to me is what defines the best actors. When even though they might be really famous or whatever, I'm trying to think. I feel like Denzel Washington does this for me a lot. But you're watching it and you're not like, oh, that's Denzel Washington. You're watching like the character.
Mm.
I feel like that. I mean, that's what defines it for me.
Yeah.
You got to be real careful with your Denzel Washington movies because he's so good at making bad movies good.
Like,
And you'll be like, that was a great movie. And then you'll think about it for 5 minutes and you go like, that was a terrible movie.
Denzel Washington is he's in the movie, the only movie I've ever fallen asleep in the theater in. And that was The Manchurian Candidate. And it was just like way over my head at the time. I was like a teenager and just like didn't understand at all.
What about Training Day?
I still haven't seen it.
Oh, it's got to be added to the
Oh.
Herman cinema education list.
That's top of the list material.
Also, top comment so far from Jesse Russell. The movie's called Wanted.
Wanted. Thank you.
Wanted.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you. We're going to need a lot of help in some of these. One of my favorite Denzel movies that I think is considered mediocre at best, Book of Eli.
I've never seen Book of Eli.
Book of Eli is a terrible movie that is great fun because of Denzel. Like it's
It's got Mila
Okay.
Kunis.
I'll
so,
give that to
know,
you.
There's that's how good it is, I guess. But
It was one of those where I didn't see the trailer. I knew nothing about it. I just heard of it, and then I watched it, and I was like, "This is pretty good. I don't know what's going
love
on."
that
And then
movie.
you find out the little
there's a twist,
plot
and
twists,
the twist. If anyone other than Denzel had been doing it, it would have been
stupid.
terrible.
Yeah.
But he's great.
Is
We'll have
it,
to scope it out.
Yeah.
We'll do a Training
I'm
Day
shocked
Book
that
of
you
Eli
missed
double
that.
feature.
I'm really surprised you missed that.
That was kind of a period of time when I just was not going to the movies,
Hmm.
which is sort of ironic for now because I go to the movies all the time. I was already at the movies today.
Oh my gosh!
Believe it or
Wait,
not.
can you
Wow.
guys give your totals? I just want to know how many times you've been to the theaters. You said you were able
This
to
year?
tally it
Or,
up.
I mean, or you mean
2018?
2018?
2018.
I got to pull up my list.
All
I
right.
keep track of all the movies I see on an app called Letterboxd.
I'm at 92 for 2018, not
Okay.
counting Netflix movies.
Okay. What about
Yeah.
with Netflix movies? You think you can add another 50 or so?
Yeah, but then do you add in, because my secret hobby in movies is I love bad action movies. So
Oh yeah.
I'm watching every bad Christian Slater, Steven Seagal, like everything garbage they put on Netflix I'm watching.
Yeah, that
So
counts.
that we're into like 200 plus at that point.
Nice.
I mean, it's
There's people who don't see movies at all. They're watching the Netflix shows and all that stuff.
yeah.
So, and those can be kind of considered movies, like if you think Game of Thrones, like the hour-long episodes. But what are you at, Pete?
112, and that's probably one or two off because I think I saw one or two movies twice. Can't log them twice.
This was the first year I thought I stood a chance against him because I saw a lot of kids movies that he didn't see bringing my kids, and turns out no.
I probably make up for that with my midnight movies.
Oh yeah.
do you sleep or?
I find time somewhere in between going to the movies.
What was the 80s movie we saw at the Coolidge? It was like, not the one where the two ladies like melt because they're dead.
That was Death Becomes Her.
Yeah, no, the other one that's supposed to be like super classic, but it's like a superhero one. Then they're like vampires, and it's like they're on the beach in California, and then the cool kids are
The
like,
Lost Boys.
The
Lost Boys.
Yeah. Was that my birthday?
Yeah, that was your birthday.
Yeah.
We did Lost Boys, and then like the next day we saw The Godfather.
Yes.
It was a great back-to-back.
Godfather
They're,
1.
They're bugs, Peter.
They're maggots, Michael.
What do you guys think about the industry as a whole now? I wanted to know, do you think there are... It's still like the big studios versus everybody else? Or do you think that it's kind of, because of technology, it's become more accessible? You're always going to have outliers like Jordan Peele, right, who's going to not spend nearly as much, but then blow up from an amazing movie.
But Jordan
But-
Peele exists, by the way, because of television, which is great.
Yeah.
And Jordan Peele and in Key and Peele, they would make mini movies that were film quality inside of that show.
Yeah.
And so I think you have all these new venues. You have it's called the golden age of television, but I think because of Netflix, because of Amazon, because of all these companies out there spending money on content, people are taking chances like we haven't seen in about 20 years. The 90s had low budget direct to video movies, and so there were just great less than studio movies in the 90s. But now we're getting it again. We're getting really, really good stuff because of these companies, these media companies coming in and spending real money on things that they wouldn't have before. I think you're seeing a lot of great genre stuff, great comeback stuff that, remakes of old properties that you wouldn't have seen. Studios would be too nervous to do that because you're not going to sink $100 million into something like that. But now you've got guys like Neil Blomkamp that can make an action movie for $25-30 million, and it's like all of a sudden we're getting RoboCop back.
Yeah.
We're also seeing, I think, a trend, are going to be seeing it more, of sort of righting wrongs of sequels or sequels that never happened. And I think it's a mixture of TV and movies. We have Cobra Kai, which is a direct sequel to
Loved
the original
it.
Karate Kid. Like,
Loved
how
it.
great is that?
Yeah.
We might be getting
A sequel to Aliens,
we might get a Peter Weller RoboCop.
which would be a sequel to RoboCop 2, meaning RoboCops 3 through however high they got never happened.
Halloween last year wrote out the entire series besides the original
1
Halloween.
and 2, right?
Yeah.
Or 1.
2 doesn't even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So only 1.
Interesting.
And that's a fun world to live in where that stuff can get made now.
Mhm.
Where studios, they're financial organizations at the end of the day, and they're going to do what they think will make the most money, the best return on their investment. And sure, they have people that love movies there, but it's a financial decision. And now we live in a niche economy where you don't need 100 million people for something to make money. You can make money if 10 million people watch something on Netflix. It can be a huge hit. I mean, Bird Box, that's a great example. That's the first thing they released numbers on because so many people watched that. That movie never gets made 10 years ago. That's a weird little movie with a major actress in it.
Probably even 5 years ago,
Yeah.
honestly.
No. I
Good
think
movie,
an
too.
interesting thing about the budgets is, I think I can speak for Ryan as well, that, 2 of my favorite movies last year were like very low budget films. I think the budget might have been $2 million, $3 million, and that was Upgrade, which was
That was wonderful.
so
Yeah.
fun. And then we saw a movie a couple weeks ago, or maybe even just a week ago, that I believe counts as a 2018 movie, and that was The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot with Sam Elliott. And it was just a great, little movie,
That sounds interesting.
And it was magical because they didn't have the pressure to make it mainstream. And it's a weird movie, and it is exactly what the title says.
What would
happens.
you call that kind of movie? Because it's
Love
not
Sam
a
Elliott.
coming-of-age movie, but it's sort of the opposite, but same effect.
It's a coming of age movie, just a different stage in
coming
life.
of Twilight.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
Coming of old age.
But, great movie. Great movie.
I do love some Sam Elliott, so I'm gonna have to check that out.
And he's actually up for an Oscar this year. He's
Good
up
for
for
him.
Best Supporting Actor for A Star Is Born, which he was fabulous.
I didn't know he was in that.
Yeah.
I wanted to see that too.
Yeah.
But talking about remakes and sequels, you touched on how I hadn't thought about this, but it's making up for bad prior sequels and kind of redoing it, and it sounds like if there's been enough time for people to react and kind of absorb and soak in a bad sequel, you then know you can learn from those mistakes and somebody else can redo it. But what else makes or breaks a remake or a sequel? And what I have in mind right now is I'm hearing so much bad stuff about the live action Aladdin coming out, mainly about Will Smith being blue and just atrocious. So
What makes or breaks a good sequel or remake? I think it's a factor of things. Like, we were talking Scarface earlier. They finally are remaking Scarface.
Really?
This will be the 3rd remake of it. The Al Pacino one is the 1st remake. It was originally
I
a
didn't know.
1939
40s
film.
or
really,
Yeah.
see, I don't know
Old
any
school
of this.
gangster film. But it has Diego Luna in it.
Mhm.
I want to say Antoine Fuqua is directing it, and it's written by the Coen brothers.
Oh,
So
all right.
I don't really want to see a Scarface remake, but how am I not going to go see that Scarface remake? It's got the complete recipe to be an awesome movie.
Does Al Pacino make a cameo appearance?
Probably not.
No.
I don't think
Probably
he would.
not.
I don't think
Yeah.
they would want him
There's
to.
just no need for it, really.
Because how's he not going to upstage whoever they have, right?
But, I think the 90s and 2000s were littered with these kind of bizarre sequels where sometimes movies would be made, independent productions, and then somebody would buy it and they would sometimes just tag on a title from like a big horror movie.
Mm.
And I think that this, we're talking about the golden age of television. It'll be the golden age of sequels that we're seeing, that we're basically seeing the birth of right now. I mean, there's like Ghostbusters 3 is coming out. It's being filmed as we speak.
Okay.
And I think when you're talking about sequels and you're talking about reboots, movies live in worlds and movies create feelings, and that's what makes them so special, and that's why you love movies. So when you're making a sequel or you're making a remake of something, it has to feel right. It has to have that, it has to live in the same world, have the same rules, everything has to be just, that's what makes a great sequel. I mean, my daughter and I just got done watching all the Star Wars movies. So we've just, I showed my older daughter a few years ago, and now my younger daughter's seen them all. And The Force Awakens is a great one to talk about because that's a remake for all intents and purposes. It's a remake of Star Wars. It's better in every way, and it feels perfect when you watch it because you can tell that the people who made it grew up loving that world, and it's so entrenched and it's so perfect that it's better than Star Wars. It's better than the original. You can also see, you talk about the Aladdin remake, and Robin Williams was so iconic in that role, and Will Smith is great, and Will Smith's great in everything that he's in. Even if you don't want to like him in something, you watch it, and he's got so much charisma, and he's probably going to be great in Aladdin. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to be fine when it comes out. But when you try to rewrite an iconic performance like that and it's too close, you get that thing where computer graphics, like when the digital people look creepy because they almost look human, but they don't quite look human. And it just doesn't feel right. And I think that's what people are reacting to with the Will Smith genie.
Is that the uncanny valley?
Yeah. And Will Smith is trying to put a Will Smith spin on an iconic performance. And that's smart because if he went out there and tried to do Robin Williams, like do a Robin Williams imitation, that would be almost blasphemous and it wouldn't be right.
Yeah.
It has to be his version of it. And the movie might be terrible, it might be good, it might be somewhere in between. But I mean, that's the reason why people don't like things that aren't quite right. Another Star Wars reference would be The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie. It's a guy who had a bone to pick making a Star Wars movie, and there's some great scenes in it, but it doesn't fit with the rest of those movies.
In my opinion, like I enjoyed it. I think it's a good movie, but it's one hell of a slice of Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
There's a lot of holes.
Yeah.
Holes all over the movie, but it's maybe it's not, and I'm thinking out loud here, live on the Life After College podcast.
Oh no.
Maybe it's not a good movie, but it's a movie that's filled with great moments.
That's a perfect
Like
description for
that movie literally had moments where I like had adrenaline rushes and I almost started tearing up. Like the end fight with Luke Skywalker and Kylo Ren, like I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah. Incredible, and it's a bad movie.
I think that's why we talk about this a lot, but I think that's why I have such a strong opinion about all these remakes, and then has nothing to do with sexism, but maybe the world that you were talking about, and like having the same characters in the same world and that same experience that you took away is why when I hear there's like an all girls recast of like Ghostbusters or the Ocean's 8 stuff, I think my brain triggers like, oh, that's not like, why don't they just make a movie where they're the feature, like that's original to them, like a
those
like
weren't for you also.
Yes, yeah. I'm not the target audience probably for those people, but
right.
But I think that helps me frame it in a different way, where like it's not supposed to be exactly the same. It's supposed to kind of like bring you to another world, different experience, which is cool.
Yeah, the thing I didn't like about Ocean's 8 was I felt that the full the heist that they're pulling off is such low stakes.
Yeah.
And I feel like, Oceans 11 through 13, they're always high stakes, and I thought it was like a like a sort of disservice or kind of like
And they were selling a George Clooney cameo through that entire movie.
Oh my
Yeah, and he's
gosh,
supposed to come
right?
out,
How
and he
could
never
they?
comes
Right?
out.
How did they couldn't get
I was
5
like,
minutes
I'm going
of
to see
George
George Clooney in this. Yeah. No, didn't happen.
That was incredible. That was the best non-appearance in a film if there's an acting award.
I was telling Herman the other day, I assume they're going to do Oceans 9, 10, and then they all meet up in 14. Is that,
Yeah.
Is that the
Wait,
likely
what?
plan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
'cause
they're
there's
going to do
11
another
songs.
one with her in it, right?
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm going to turn this back on the whole table here.
Uh-oh.
Plot twist.
Remakes, sequels, all of this. They have figured out how to perfect the de-aging software.
Yes.
Do you want Peter Weller to look like young RoboCop? Do we want more Indiana Jones movies where Harrison Ford is playing middle-aged Indy instead of old Indy? Where do you fall?
Depends.
I want both because, and I know I've talked about this with you guys, but for people listening, I love the concept of movies revisiting characters when they're older. So I know a lot of people. I know Kevin Smith has been kind of I don't want to say quietly because it's in public, but he's been pushing for Michael Keaton playing old Bruce Wayne Batman. Remember, we saw a Sherlock Holmes movie with Ian McKellen where it's old Sherlock Holmes. He has like dementia,
Past his powers,
powers, but it's like a great Sherlock Holmes film. I want to see Daniel Craig playing James Bond, or even Sean Connery playing James Bond, but as an old James Bond. Like just that concept, I love it. I know Scorsese, Paul Schrader, and Robert De Niro had been throwing around the idea of doing a Taxi Driver 2, which I can't even fathom or imagine.
Are you still talking to me?
But they all wanted to revisit that character and had an idea of how they could do it.
Yeah.
And I think with streaming services, I think seeing some of these sequels and things come to life will, be more of a possibility. De-aging wise, though, I mean, I'm all for it. The Irishman, which is coming out later this year, has, I think, 30 to 40% of the movie is, Pacino and De Niro de-aged. And they're kind of just going for it. I know I read an interview with Thelma Schoonmaker where she was talking about the editing process. And she's just kind of like, fingers crossed, we're working through it, and hopefully it'll look cool.
The last 3 or 4 movies with it, though, it's been of a quality where it's like, oh, all right, now we can actually...
Rogue One
Rogue One
was great.
Was one, especially the ending. And the previews for what's the new Marvel movie where Sam Jackson's 40 years old in it? Captain Marvel, yeah. The preview for that. I mean, he looks. It looks like we have '90s era Sam Jackson in a movie coming out in a few weeks.
But here's my issue with it, because I don't like it, and I feel like
Herman, always the muckraker.
Sorry,
always
bro.
got something.
Negative
always got something to
Nancy.
complain about over here.
I'll lighten it up after he's
All
done.
right, Herman, lay it out for us. Buddy.
I just feel like it's cheap. The idea is to, I don't know.
Billy
I'm fighting
Madison
with technology.
too.
No.
Well, here's the thing.
You're fighting with technology. I feel like it's not. For some reason, it feels less authentic to me. You're not getting. There's something that adds value to an actor when the actor ages and goes away. Do you know what I mean? Great actors pass away, and that's their work, and that's what they did, and that's who they were. But to kind of immortalize them, I just feels really weird. But immortalized in a human way, where you're just sort of I'm not watching 3D or a cartoon or a live action cartoon movie.
Well,
It's
here's kind of and I think it's 2 separate issues. My sort of what if movie that I would love to see made would be a Godfather 4. And that would be taking the original plot they were throwing around in the late 90s, early 2000s, which would be showing sort of the rise of the Corleone family through Sonny Corleone, which was going to be played by Leonardo DiCaprio. That was the person they were throwing around. And then the fall through Andy Garcia. 80s Rico, drugs. But now you could go back. You could de-age Robert De Niro and you could restructure that story to have De
Michael
Niro
and
play
Luca.
Vito Corleone, a role that he won the Oscar for 40, 45 years ago. I'm I think that would be awesome. the separate part of that issue is, do we want to see a Bruce Lee movie? Do we want to see Enter the Dragon 2? Bruce Lee's been gone for probably about 40 years.
And I think he's one of
longer.
the actors you can license now, right? Like, they have full models of him. You can put Bruce Lee in a movie if you pay enough money.
Yeah,
Or
but
like-
would it actually be him, or would it would be like the best educated representation of that person?
You would probably
So
get
it's
like a body double, and you would probably do the dot stuff on the face, and then
to me, it feels like a
3D track
cover
a mask on
band.
them.
That's what it is. It
Well,
feels like
and
I'm going to
that's the
see
thing.
like the Michael Jackson experience at Six Flags,
Yeah.
where it's like almost
Yeah.
Michael Jackson, but it's not.
or mini kiss.
Yeah. Well, that's
Many
a whole
kids.
other story. That's perfect. That perfectly describes how it feels to me. Like it's so close, but it's
a
like
really
you
good
know
cover
it's
band.
not really.
But I think
thing.
seeing De Niro de-aged while he's living is separate than resurrecting Bruce Lee for a film. But I fall in a weird place because, as you guys know, and maybe as some people who have listened to the first episode with me, I love Phantasm. It's my favorite thing, my favorite movie. I collect memorabilia. It just has a very special place in my heart. The main actor, Angus Scrimm, passed away 3 years ago. And so the question that kind of gets thrown around amongst my friends is, like, would you want to see a Phantasm 6? And if you do, would you want them to have a digital tall man or sort of divert the story in a little bit of a different direction without the tall man? And it's a hard, I think my answer would ultimately end up with seeing Angus Scrimm, because I think it would almost be a tribute if they used like unused footage, table read footage. But I don't have a concrete answer on
Okay.
what I want to see. So I think it kind of depends. I mean, I think there's other classic Hollywood actors that are licensed. I think like Humphrey Bogart and some of the ones that pop up in commercials, but no one has gone forth and made like a Casablanca 2,
Yeah.
you know? So I think there's a kind of a level of taste that it's kind of for like a Super Bowl commercial, people are going to do it, but you know.
Here's an interesting one. When I was showing my youngest daughter all the Star Wars movies, we watched Solo. Solo's a good movie, and no one liked it because it was wrong having... You know, you talked about it being a cover band, but when you had the cover band of a different actor playing an iconic role, that's what made that movie not liked. It felt wrong. It felt like you were watching a cover band of Harrison Ford. So what if you could de-age Harrison Ford and put him in there? Is that better?
But I feel like there have been movies. I'm racking my brain trying to figure it out, where they were remade, and the actor did like a better job. I'm trying to think of a.
I mean, you could go back, and I don't think this falls exactly with what you said, but Godfather 2 was made 2 years after The Godfather, but Robert De Niro plays the same character as Marlon Brando does. And, you know, I mean, they actually both won Academy Awards for their portrayal of that character. So it can be done where it's successful. I think it depends on the actor. I think it depends on the source material that they're
It's got to be done tastefully.
pulling their performance from.
I think the world that it creates also. That's one of my takeaways from this conversation is that like movies are a world on their own that have been created or documented visually. So that's a big factor. Actually, what were you gonna say, Jake? About
Oh, I'm going to meet us in the middle. But I agree with Herman in how we don't... You don't want it to feel like a cover band. No matter how good it is, you know that's not it. Because you know. But you mentioned Indiana Jones. Let's say they made another Indiana Jones.
Me and Ryan have a great plot for an Indiana Jones.
Oh, I
5.
want to hear it after.
You'll have to talk to our representation.
And do I want a de-aged Harrison Ford playing in this next Indiana Jones or not? I'm more along the lines of I want current aged Harrison Ford, but flashbacks to you can take clips of the old movies, fine, but then add in some extra stuff that wasn't in those old movies with D.H. Harrison Ford, kind of some behind the scenes stuff that wasn't in the movie but happened for the purposes of this current movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'm making an Indiana Jones 5, I'm going to set it in probably the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
I think Harrison Ford, I mean, that character would be, 30 years older, so I think you could do a great plot that would take place in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I want to see like 10 Indiana Jones adventures through the 30s, too. Like in between Temple of Doom and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And that's the beauty of that character in those movies is they're all their own inclusive adventures.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really need the other ones to... You don't have to rely on the other ones because each one establishes the character,
What's the plot for
I was
Indiana
trying to have
Jones?
to rehash it. When we were talking about Brazil, Nazis in hiding, some kind of relic.
Oh, South America. yeah.
Short round coming back.
Shorty's grown up.
Yes.
He's no longer Shorty.
Yeah.
He's Tolly.
And if George and Steven are watching, contact her.
There was actually an Indiana Jones movie that went into production, and they decided they didn't have the special effects horsepower to get it done. And then they tried to make it into a video game. I don't know if the video game ever came out. It's about Atlantis.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
They did make that game.
They did make the game?
Yeah.
But that was a movie, and it was all the way to, like, they were in production with the movie. So now they probably have plenty of special effects to make that movie, so let's get it.
But I feel like as moviegoers and Indiana Jones fans, we were robbed of
That
all
movie.
these sequels that should exist that just don't exist. I feel like the way those serialized movies work, like we should be up to Indiana Jones 10. I know in the 90s they were throwing around one where Kevin Costner would have played Indiana Jones, like younger lost brother. And Sean Connery would have like, been his dad again. And like, I want to see another Sean Connery, Harrison Ford Indiana Jones movie. There's just so much you could do with that
Isn't
character.
he in
that's
his
so fun.
Isn't he in his 90s now?
Sean Connery?
If he's not in his 90s, he's got to be in upper 80s. I mean, he's
Yeah.
officially retired, but like, again,
Just like have him sit, run a
like
couple lines.
put him in a Bond movie.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would
Yeah.
be great.
Wasn't his last movie
The Rock,
no.
Nicolas Cage.
No. It was
Great movie though.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. And from what I hear, that movie was so bad that it kind of broke him, and he's been done since. It's what I've heard. Not sure how true that is.
I don't know. And I mean, there might be something more to his retirement that we're not privy to.
Age.
Could be sick.
Yeah.
I know there was rumors of Jack Nicholson a couple years back that he had like Alzheimer's and couldn't remember lines anymore. So he was like, "I'm not doing this,"
Yeah.
because of being on set and then being like, "Who am I? Where am I?" I mean, who knows if that's true or if it's just a
Sure.
rumor? But if you just take that scenario,
Yeah, it
I'm
sounds
sure there's
awful.
always some other things that go on to those retirements.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great segue for 2019 Oscar. Yeah, I feel like I could talk about that forever, though. I did want to get to one
You gotta
question.
yell Kobe before you throw up a segue like that.
Yeah, I know. Right? Did it score? Did it hit? No, I wanted to get to a question Jesse asked in our comments about who you think the most underrated actor or director is or are.
Like sort of our generation or ever.
Whatever you want to answer.
That's a tough one.
I get the director. I got two directors. I think the most underrated director of our generation is Ron Howard. Ron Howard disappears into his movies. He will take someone else's story and make the best possible version of it. He is incredible at being invisible. And the other director who I think is absolutely great at that is Antoine Fuqua. Antoine Fuqua, he tends to make action movies and genre movies and suspense movies, and they're just, it's always good. If you're like, this movie has no business being this good, chances are you're going to watch the credits and it's going to go directed by Antoine Fuqua.
Yeah.
Like he's fantastic at taking okay material and turning it great. Both of those guys would be my pick for director.
I would say Don Coscarelli, who directed Phantasm. I felt like he never got sort of a fair swing into like real like mainstream Hollywood, and I don't know that it was ever his goal to do that, but he sort of always operated within and outside of the Hollywood system. But take one of these like Marvel movies or DC movies and give it to Don Coscarelli and see what he can do with it. I mean, Phantasm 5, which came out a couple years ago, him and David Hartman made for $200,000, $300,000. And I know Ridley Scott recently in an interview was quoted as saying, you know, he's specifically talking about the Star Wars movies and how they keep giving Star Wars movies to these young directors, and then the young directors get fired, and they're bringing in people like Ron Howard to finish them. And I think it would be interesting to see some of these big budget movies that have sort of taken over Hollywood and taken over really like the cineplexes. Because think, if you go to the movies 4 or 5 times a year, like you're not probably going to go see The Man Who Killed Hitler and then The Bigfoot. You're going to go see Avengers 7 and Iron Man 6. Like, that's what you're going to go see. So I think it would be interesting to give some of these sort of classic Hollywood sci-fi action directors sort of these movies, you know? I don't even know that they would want them, but I'm sure if somebody came to Don Coscarelli with a Star Wars movie, like, that's an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or like John Carpenter doing like an X-Men movie.
And you think back to like the 80s and 90s when they actually did that, and it worked out great almost every time. Jim Cameron, Paul Verhoeven, all these guys that were small-time directors that all of a sudden they got big-budget movies. Tim Burton. It worked out great, and we got some really creative stuff from them, some really unusual and creative stuff. So I'm with Pete. I'd like to see some smaller budget directors get bigger shots.
One thing I always think of is, and this does tie to the Oscars, is what are your guys' opinion on reconciling film for like filmmakers and people in the industry versus film for just people, the viewer, film that's just, you know, supposed to entertain. It's kind of like the difference between like a poetic song and just like a pop song that doesn't mean anything for me, but I don't know. I wonder what you think.
Could you maybe expand more on what you mean by reconcile?
So I feel like the Oscars as a ceremony and is all this giant.
I think I know where you're going.
Okay, yeah.
I think we're talking about like art house and dramas and prestige movies versus populist movies. And I think the first thing you have to acknowledge is there's such a thing as quality. So there are good movies and bad movies. You can watch a movie that is big budget and bad, and you can watch a movie that's low budget and good. And quality is real. It's a form of art. That's a thing. But you also have to acknowledge that movies have different goals. And if you're telling a story that you consider a prestige story, it's like a high-quality tale. And it's supposed to take you on a journey inside of your head. And for that to succeed, it's going to require good acting, good directing, all this stuff. But if you have an action movie that's supposed to thrill you, then that can also be a great movie. And I think you're wondering, like, how come those never get nominated and they never win? Well, they do. They do now. So in the last 20 years, that's completely gotten turned on its head. The Lord of the Rings won an Oscar for Best Picture one year. Avatar, which was not a good movie quality-wise and just a masterful technical achievement, was nominated for Best Picture. So you can have a great movie that's a comedy that, you know, would not be nominated. The best movie one year, Superbad, have you ever seen that? Mm-hmm. One of just the most successful movies in terms of doing what it set out to do. Office Space, another great comedy. Comedies will always be neglected. That's what the Golden Globes are for. Okay. They have a separate category for comedy and musical, which, why lump those together? That's really weird to me.
Yeah. Well, I just feel, and I feel like those types of movies get snubbed as well. I don't know.
They have their own categories, too, in the awards, which is weird. A lot of times, the special effects, the cinematography, the art direction, those are the, like, that's where you...
I don't know if this is a later question, but in terms of snubs, like, and to... like piggyback off one of his earlier things about The Force Awakens, like how was The Force Awakens not nominated for Best Picture?
But Black Panther is.
Yeah,
right?
like Black
They're
Panther,
like the same kind of movie.
for all intents and purposes, was a fun movie. That's not a movie that should be nominated for Best Picture.
yeah.
Best villain, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and it had a great cast, great performances,
Yeah.
but not even the best
you know.
Michael B. Jordan movie of the year.
Yeah.
definitely not.
Yeah. Well, what do you guys think about the controversies that surround the Oscars themselves?
Well, I mean,
So,
this year's biggest controversy was
the host, right?
they were like not even the host. Like this week, the big controversy was cinematography and editing awards were not going to be announced on air.
Oh,
So there's been an uproar because everyone's like,
That
without
is the
cinematography and editing,
That's the
you have Lady Gaga singing, over Black for 2 hours.
But as one of the 3 people in America that care about those 2 awards, they're the worst Oscars.
Yeah.
They are never given for the movies that they're given for.
Except last year.
It's like, no, you take turns. It's so turn taking.
Last year, Blade Runner 2049 deserved it.
Beautiful
Beautiful film.
art direction, sir. Art direction.
Art direction, it won cinematography. Right?
It did win
Although
cinematography.
Deakins.
Black Panther did have pretty good art direction.
Right, but that was a Deakins makeup call.
Come on.
Deakins got robbed
They
twice.
revived
So
Africa.
the editing and cinematography Oscars are ridiculous. They're absolutely ridiculous. If you look at the last Blade Runner was great, I'll give him that. But it was a makeup
Thank you.
call. It was for Roger Deakins got screwed over
Like
3 or 4 times
Marty
in a row.
with The Departed.
Right.
The Departed sweeped Oscars, and like when that movie got put out, they didn't think that was going to be an Oscar movie. That was like an action gangster movie.
Yeah.
The
But that's Marty getting that award for not getting it for Goodfellas, which is like the top of his canon, right? And like Casino completely overlooked. It's like a makeup Oscar. They even had Spielberg and George Lucas and Coppola out there to give him the award. Like they knew he was getting it.
one of the all-time worst
Enough.
Oscars in history was for cinematography, and it was just a few years ago.
Oh yeah,
Giannis
I already know where it's
Kaminsky
going. I know where he's
filmed the movie Lincoln, and he used all practical light, and he shot with windows in period locations, and it's beautiful. And the award for best cinematography went to Life of Pi, which was shot in a pool in a parking lot.
yeah. With just blue screen, right? Or green
Get
screen.
out of here.
You saw it. You were in the
Yeah.
parking lot, Herman.
I know.
That's where the best
yeah.
cinematography award was shot. It was a complete ripoff. It was, and then Giannis won it 3 years later for some lesser movie, and they take turns. They take turns
So,
with this. So
what do you guys
having
think
them
about
not
that?
appear, start awarding them to the right movie, and then I'll care that they're not happening.
Or
during
create,
commercials.
and I think this isn't uncalled for, but create like a digital cinematography award.
Yeah.
Because it's not like there's no work that goes into creating that stuff.
And
but
it's not visual effects. It's different from visual effects. So
How are you going to put Robert Richardson, like probably the GOAT when it comes to DPs, against them creating like an ocean background for Life of Pi?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's not hard work and talent and art that goes into that creation, but it's just different to me. I mean, Robert Richardson's going to reviving lenses for 70 millimeter to
Yeah.
film Hateful
he
Eight.
went and
Yeah.
found the lens that they used for the candlelight scene in Barry Lyndon. Like he went and found the physical lens.
Yeah.
Like that's absurd.
That's nuts.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And but
Knows
he's up
what he
against-
wants.
There should be cinematography needs to be two different awards at this point because so much is digital. So much stuff that you don't even know is digital is digital.
Yeah.
And that's not what cinematography is. And editing is the worst and dumbest Oscar there is because what winds up happening is the same editor might be the best editor of a movie 5 years in a row and they just don't want to give it to the same person 5 years in a row. And the people who vote on it aren't behind the scenes people. So inevitably the best editor is the most famous editor and or like the movie that had the sharpest cuts. So whoever got to have the most like staccato movie gets best editor and whoever had the prettiest movie gets best cinematographer. It's like you shouldn't be able to vote on it if you don't understand it. It's not right.
Do you think DiCaprio's Oscar was a makeup Oscar?
That's a hard one because his performance in The Revenant is an unbelievable
It was.
performance.
I agree.
But he's had so many, like Gilbert Grape, like all these other movies. Like he's been so good. I feel like
I think I've talked about this on a personal level with people here, but DiCaprio is one of my favorite actors to watch. but sometimes in his roles and earlier roles doesn't really sell. There's movies where he completely sells the character to me, and movies where it falls flat. And I think movies where he sells it, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, The Basketball Diaries,
Wolf of Wall Street or no?
Wolf of Wall Street. But the movie where he sells his role the best, to me, was Django Unchained.
Yes, unbelievable.
Unbelievable
I gotta see
performance.
that.
And
Yeah.
I think maybe if Christoph Waltz didn't get the award, he would have gotten it. I mean, Christoph Waltz won, it wasn't 2 years in a row, but it was pretty close to that. You know, I think it was 2000, was Glorious Bastards 2009 he won for, and then he won for Django Unchained.
I just finally watched Inception.
Nice.
So DiCaprio popped
Great
into my
in
head.
Inception. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, just fantastic movie all around. I remember that being a huge deal. Speaking of like CGI and special effects, like was that a groundbreaking film? Is that considered a groundbreaking film, or was that already like
For
Yeah.
effects,
Yeah.
for story,
Yeah,
it
unbelievable.
was definitely next level.
One of the best ensemble acting groups, too.
Yeah.
And I think just I'm not going to use the right term, but filmmaking groups. You got at least big names. You got Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer, and then all these actors together. Just
Not a big Hans Zimmer fan as a musician.
yeah,
I was gonna say.
I know. I knew you were going
Why
to say
not?
that.
Because do you want a tense moment? Just
That-
tick something and then make the tick go
that sounds like
faster
the end
and
credits.
faster and faster
I'm going to
and
take through the
faster.
whole movie. The rest of the podcast, we're going to have Dunkirk, the podcast.
Completely effective during Dunkirk, though.
Yeah, but you know what also was effective? That same exact thing for all the Batmans. Listen, it's the same thing.
He's not
See,
wrong.
that's one of those things that, like, in 20 years, when we look back,
You,
and
you
go,
give the people what they want.
the teaming up of Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer, like they had a whole.
Is he going to
feel
be the
going
John
throughout
Williams
the
to
film.
Spielberg?
Yeah,
Absolutely
Kinda
not.
deal.
That is blasphemy. I'm just joking. That I think that's a great comparison. Actually, the two, and that actually is. Is there a musical category for film score in the
Yeah,
Oscars?
definitely.
Okay.
There's,
There are two,
What are they?
score and song.
Okay. Cool. Is
That's how they get the famous people to go to the Oscars
yeah, and perform.
and perform.
Is that what Lady Gaga and other homeboy are up for?
Yeah, and they're performing it too.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
But there was
That'll
a
bring some-
headline today I read that was Bradley Cooper is performing the song as Bradley Cooper and not the character, and I was just like,
Interesting
Yeah.
choice.
the heck does that mean?
right? Isn't that what's? Wait, what? What?
Yeah.
I have a strange thing about actors singing in movies now. And it started with, I'm pretty sure it started with, I can't remember the actors. Oh, Hugh Jackman singing in
Greatest Showman?
Greatest Showman, and then wasn't there another?
Les
Les
Miserables.
Miserables. And I was like, he's doing okay, but
I am Jean Valjean.
I feel like he's not supposed to do a good job at this because he's not a performer. He's not a singer.
Like a concert performance.
Yeah,
Is he though?
I don't know.
Like, is that
Did
one of
he
those
do a
things
good
where
job?
his-
I think he did a decent job.
'cause you got to remember, a lot of actors come from like musical theater and drama backgrounds. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know if there is an answer, but
Right.
for all I know, he was on Broadway and stuff in the '80s or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he could be a decorated showman. We
The
don't
one that
know.
always gets me is when you find out someone who's like a tough guy actor can dance. That's whenever you're watching like a behind the scenes or something, and all of a sudden they're like really gracefully dancing. I'm just like, what?
That's one of my favorite things about
Clint
Terry
Eastwood.
Crews. The great
Yeah.
Terry Crews.
Great Terry Crews, baby.
Terry Crews ballet. Like,
Are we gonna get a Tom Cruise and Terry Crews movie?
Or a reality TV show called The
Cruise and
Cruises.
Cruise?
And is Terry Crews' real last name Maplethorpe?
Terry Maplethorpe.
Oh man, bummer. Bummer. I'm bummed out. I'm going silent for a minute.
I was going to bring up another controversy that we've discussed in the past, but not live on the air,
Oh.
regarding the 1999 controversies and with Shakespeare in Love, Saving Private Ryan.
So being a kid where I wasn't,
Do you know about this, Jake?
I read it in your notes, but
Okay.
I
don't know
wasn't a
anything about
sports kid. Like I didn't, I mean, I played sports very early on, but my thing was movies. I had subscriptions to movie magazines. Premiere Magazine, I used to bring the class and like show other kids around me, like, here's the on-set journal from Martin Scorsese while he's making Casino, and here's like Mel Gibson behind the scenes on Braveheart. Like that was my world and life, and I mean, very much still.
Premiere,
is.
Movie Line, and Fangoria came on the same Tuesday every month, and it was like that Tuesday was like
Booyah
Christmas.
Day.
It was Christmas.
Official booyah.
It was so good.
But, so watching the Oscars at age like 13, 14, that was like exciting, a big deal. And that's where I started to realize, okay, like this isn't all, like there's something else going on behind the scenes here. And I mean, already on like, those internet sites and magazines, they were talking about Harvey Weinstein sort of buying people over with the gift baskets and how like they put a lot of money into an Oscar campaign for Shakespeare in Love. And when Shakespeare in Love won Best Picture over Saving Private Ryan, like I felt like the wind got sucked out of me.
Yeah.
Like it still bums me out to this day. Like it bums me out looking at the look on Steven Spielberg's face. Like, and he won Best Director, and then sits down, and then they go Best Picture, and they run through the nominations, and it's like Shakespeare in Love, Saving Private Ryan, and when they call and the Oscar for Best Picture goes to Shakespeare in Love, it was just like.
Anytime Best
Excuse me?
Director and Best Picture don't line up, also something's going on.
Okay.
Because how did you not direct the Best Picture if you were the Best Director?
Yeah.
Did
But historically, also, by the way, if you go back into the 20s, 30s, 40s, and even before then, it was even more obviously payola. I mean, Charlie Chaplin famously only got an honorary Oscar or a Lifetime Achievement Oscar.
Yeah. Wow.
A whole bunch of other. Buster Keaton, I don't think ever won an Oscar.
How about the Citizen Kane?
Orson Welles
Orson
with
Welles.
his forward acceptance speech for the. I think he said like "thank you very much" and walked off stage
That's epic.
for his Lifetime Achievement Award. Because what was the movie that beat Citizen Kane? Where the Green Grows or something? It's one that I haven't even seen because it's that hard to find.
Yeah. Wow.
So I haven't seen the movie that beat Citizen Kane.
Which is Citizen Kane is like a film where people are like, you want to learn about film? Here's Citizen Kane.
Yeah, and it's one, by the way, that it's not in my top 10 of old movies, but it's one that's of a time and of a moment. It's wonderful,
Yeah.
but I don't want to say it's overrated, but when it's on the top of everyone's best ever list, I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think, and I've sort of mentioned this movie, but Scorsese not winning Best Director for Goodfellas and that not winning Best Picture, and Dances with Wolves and Kevin Costner winning over that, like
that's one of the worst ones, right?
Yeah,
that's got to be.
I remember seeing that in like the 8th grade, like before a long weekend, where like on a Friday when the teacher was like, "All right, we're gonna put on a movie, Dances with Wolves," and just falling asleep at my desk, like I didn't know what was going on. So that's pretty
it's
interesting.
That's one of the biggest snubs to me of all time.
So would we say that it's just because I was thinking of a comparison where is it baseball or basketball where the press votes for MVP but not the players?
Yeah.
And the players are always complaining like it's just wrong. It has that same feeling where something's just like a little bit off about who's picking what.
Yeah, and there are no good awards because if you look at People's Choice Awards, those are going to be the ones that had the highest box office because those are the ones most people saw.
Yeah.
If you look at the Golden Globes, it's going to be the Hollywood Foreign Press Association trying to get certain people to show up, trying to get certain people to go to their events and press junkets. And then you have the Academy Awards, and that's famous for turn taking and prestige. So
The Emmys are straight up TV, right? That's like
Yeah.
old school. There's no movie things
Well,
going on there.
I feel like now it's actually a little bit. I don't know if skewed's the right word, but because there's so much like Netflix content and
Yeah.
all the streaming services,
they have a lot of the old miniseries awards are now film awards.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
how do we feel about Netflix and streaming originals.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I wish they played in theaters. There were components of The Ballad of Buster Scruggs by the Coen brothers that were probably the best films of the year.
I've seen that on my. It pops up on Netflix and
You
looks
must
interesting.
watch.
Incredible, and it would have
Yeah.
been great on a big screen. Like the cinematography was also just
Mhm.
next level.
I think all that's going to come to a head because I know there's this backlash with Netflix and Oscars. And I mean, Rome was up for Best Picture and Best Foreign Film,
Mm-hmm.
but big movie theater chains are blocking out Netflix from actually screening their movies theatrically. But Netflix has to screen a movie theatrically in order for it to be up for awards. So they're relying on the independent theater chains to do so.
And Netflix will buy a theater chain before long. I mean, Netflix,
Oh, yeah.
Netflix, Amazon, they'll all own small.
That's like
theater
the
chains.
baller gangster move. You know?
Yeah,
Badass.
just buy up all the like.
Well, they're
Hollywood
producing enough
hits types.
content now to fill a 2-screen theater year round.
Yeah,
Mm.
So I mean, once you don't buy a theater chain when you have a movie coming out every month. You buy a theater chain when you have 5 movies coming out every month, which I think Netflix is going to reach at some point this spring.
wow.
Yeah,
They have their pipeline is that big.
sure.
That means Adam Sandler might be up for a few awards there coming up.
You would
did
be so stoked. you would have a viewing party and everything.
I would be, but he there is something to be said, and we talk about this. There's something to be said about content, and even if people probably agree that it's like garbage or whatever, I disagree because I think he's giving us the what would have been VHS like straight like movies, but if I had to put stock in a director, I think it'd be Adam Sandler because he's just putting out content. And Ryan and I have talked about this, but I feel like in 10 years, maybe 20 years, there's going to be like next level because of content. I don't know.
Well, and I mean, The Irishman, nobody would fund it. Like, that's how I think that's a perfect example of how screwed up Hollywood is right now. Is that Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Harvey Keitel, Joe Pesci, like a movie that's just guaranteed to kill it at the box office, nobody would touch
Yeah.
because they need a superhero movie that's going to have 2 sequels that's going to tie into another movie. And that's how these like Marvel movies are kind of destroying the box office in some sense.
Wasn't Scorsese going through a similar thing where he couldn't get funding for some of his movies?
Yeah, he's always had like a pretty, if you go back to his history, a lot of trouble getting movies funded.
Mhm.
It's because he doesn't really he makes sort of, they have the look and feel of a Hollywood movie, but the stories don't have happy endings. You know?
In my opinion, the greatest film of all time only exists because of a funding problem. And that's Francis Ford Coppola couldn't get the money to make Apocalypse Now. And so he
heard
and
about
an
this.
editor went back and recut The Godfather 1 and 2 for TV, for CBS, to get the funding to make the rest of the movie. And as a result of that, they made the TV version of The Godfather Epic. And then about 2 years ago, HBO gave him and the same editor the money to go back and put the violent and dirty parts back in. And now on HBO Go, it's called The Godfather Epic still. But, I mean, it's a chronological version of Godfather 1 and 2. And it's probably the best movie there is. It's about 4 hours long, 5 hours long.
7 hours.
Is it 7?
Get a
It
charcuterie plate.
feels like 2.5.
Get a charcuterie plate. Get some chicken cutlets ready. Get some vino, aluminum cans of Coke, some nice semolina bread, and just sit back
But it's
and enjoy the one family's search for the American dream in like an outside way.
It is.
you know?
It is exponentially better than The Godfather 2, and The Godfather 2 is always in people's top 5. And The Godfather Epic is way better. It's so. It doesn't feel like 7 hours. Would you agree?
No, definitely not.
Feels like 3 hours.
And
Wow.
this is a hard one for me because in my household, we had the Godfather Epic VHS set. So that's how
How
we
many
always watched
VHSs was it?
3 tapes.
3? Okay.
And that's how we always watched it. But over the past probably decade or so, I've seen Godfather 2 3 times in the theater. And we'll see it again later this year because Turner Classic Movies are bringing it back to theaters for the Fathom events. And I feel like The Godfather 2, I know I've said this before, The Godfather 2 shouldn't really be a good movie. It was rushed. Coppola didn't really want to do it, so they took source material that they didn't use for Mario Puzo's novel, and then sort of, they add on the Michael plot with like Havana and Nevada, and it's just, a movie that was put together in the editing room.
Yeah.
And I always love movies like that. I always feel Phantasm was a movie put together in the editing room. I feel like the Scorsese movie shined because of Thelma in the editing room. And that's a movie that's just, it flows beautifully, but really shouldn't. Because originally it was cut into all the De Niro stuff and then all the Michael stuff. And I think it was George Lucas that sat down with Coppola and said, you have 2 movies here. You should, make one and then release another. And then I think somebody else threw in the idea of like, what if you kind of cut back and forth? And then they tried it, and it just completely works.
So-
And my reference version of The Godfather was a Laserdisc set that I had of. It was called The Godfather Trilogy.
He's dating himself right now.
Laserdisc, baby. I actually
You and Tom
made
Cruise?
more money selling my Laserdisc player and collection than I paid for it.
Laserdiscs have a very, sour spot with me, because being a kid who loved movies, in the 90s, Laserdiscs had, and you were buying that, you were actively buying them, so the supplemental material, stuff like
That was
director's
how you got
commentaries,
commentaries and
deleted
Yeah.
scenes,
Yeah.
behind the scenes featurettes,
and they were widescreen, and VHS was not.
No way.
So have you ever seen a Laserdisc?
Yes. It's a
They're the size
giant
of a
CD.
record. They look like a giant CD. They're the size of a record, and they only held about 25 minutes of video.
No way.
So to watch the Godfather trilogy, it's the same thing as the Godfather epic, but also with the third one cut in chronologically. And
Okay.
I think you had something like 8 or 10 discs, and you had to flip it every 25 minutes, and that was 10 hours long.
Were there things that were self-flipping?
Yeah, but only one disc. I even had a 5 Laserdisc player, and that one couldn't flip anything.
That's insane.
And so I bought it, and I was like, I can put a whole movie in at one time, and this is going to be great. And I bought it. There used to be a chain of stores around here called Lechmere.
Yes.
I bought it from Lechmere when Lechmere died. And I was so excited because I was like, never changing another movie ever again. 5 Laserdisc players. This is great. It just held 5 Laserdiscs. You still had to go and flip them. And it didn't even play both sides of one Laserdisc.
cost them an arm and a leg too. How much was that?
Oh, well, it was while they were closing, so it was great. It was
Ooh,
a couple
you got a
$100 for, a 5 Laserdisc player back in
90s
the
dollars?
late 90s. That was $800-900 if you bought it new. I couldn't.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember Lechmere.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the epic. Though the thing that I like better about it is it contrasts Vito and Michael better. You actually, Michael's fall from grace is better in the epic than it is when you watch 1 and 2 separately, because you have this contrast of Vito, who is in a much harder world and up against much harder circumstances. He becomes a crime lord, but he's very ethical.
Yes.
And he lives by an ethic, and it's about temptation, but he never succumbs to the devil. It's very religious. And whereas Michael, he's a war hero. He's gonna make good. He's gonna get above it all, and he falls in
Be
love.
a lawyer,
and he's-
politician, senator.
yeah, he's gonna be the one that transcends the company. They're setting him up to be like JFK, basically, right?
Yeah.
But he falls. And when he falls in the epic, you're seeing it against the background of Vito. And you're seeing it against this father who, Vito seems almost like a secondary character towards the end of his arc when you watch them separately. But you almost feel this palpable disappointment, you had everything, you could have been
A contender.
more. You could have been a contender. That's a great callback to another Marlon Brando.
And it's interesting because essentially by the end of Godfather Part 2, Michael is the most powerful mafia boss in maybe the world, definitely the country.
But it cost him
But
his soul.
Yeah, his soul and his family.
Yeah.
He's completely alone.
The two things that we've established as the most important things in the movies, he doesn't have anymore. They're gone.
Wow.
And the other one is his wife is a very ancillary character. She's hardly a part of Godfather 1 and 2 when you watch them. She just pops in and out and whatever. She has this whole she's a fully fleshed out character in the epic. So those are the reasons why I and you get a lot more time in Italy, which I love.
And both won Oscars. Is that right?
Yeah, both
Okay.
won Best Picture.
Wow.
I know Godfather 2 won Best Director.
Godfather 1 did not.
Godfather 1 did not. Marlon Brando won. De Niro won. And I think it won for music and writing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Pacino did not win, which is, when you go back, if you see who won 1974 and 1971 or 2, it would be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to see if those roles are as legendary and iconic. And I would challenge that they are probably not.
The actor who played Fredo, did he win? I think he might have won.
The Struan of Austrians.
Three of them were up that year. It was De Niro, the actor who played Frankie Pantangeli, I forget his name, and then John Cazale.
John Cazale.
Yeah, were I think all up for Best Supporting Actor.
Who can we talk about big time actors coming up in these Oscars and just ones coming out of the woodwork?
I'm excited about having Denzel Washington for another 30, 40 years with his son coming up as an actor.
I know. Black Klansman.
No love for Ice Cube though.
Ice Cube Jr.
Who is
Really?
also a clone.
I saw the trailers for the NWA movie,
Straight out
Yeah.
of...
Straight Outta Compton,
Which is
But I
actually
didn't
one of my
see the
favorite.
movie.
I'm a big fan of trailers. I
Yeah.
love watching trailers.
Same.
The Straight Outta Compton trailer is one of the best trailers cut.
I didn't see the movie, I have to admit it, but I feel like Denzel Washington is one of the greatest actors, and Ice Cube is not. So I guess I'm not as excited about his son becoming an actor.
Have you seen his performance in Boys in the Hood? And that's a serious question. Doughboy?
I didn't even. There's the Friday movies, but I didn't even remember he was in Boys in the Hood.
Oh,
He is
I thought of, like,
phenomenal.
Ice Cube
Like,
and, like-
unbelievable.
I don't think that might have been up for a few Oscars at the time because that was a pretty groundbreaking movie for like that was sort of like urban hood movie brought
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
mainstream.
Yeah.
And his performance is Oscar worthy for sure.
But is he the main character in that?
He's sort of like the second main character. The main character is Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking about. Now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
The
I've seen
two
the whole movie.
cubes, Cuba and Ice Cube.
Well,
Cuba.
that's an interesting
Yes.
segue for.
Cube. Kobe. A new segment called Cube Cubed.
I would like to say, I think we just to piggyback kind of the question you just asked, but I'm gonna kind of redirect it.
Go for it.
Up and coming actors, up and coming writers and directors would be Taylor Sheridan. That is my favorite.
Who's that?
He wrote Sicario 2, Hell or High Water, which we saw together.
Which one was that?
Wind River, which
Bank
is my
Robbers?
favorite movie of last year.
Yeah, that's
Captain
pretty good.
Kirk robs bank.
That was pretty good. Yes.
Yeah. To me, he kind of takes like the Paul Schrader slow burn ending in a
Yes.
very violent climax.
Yeah.
And sort of mixes it with the work of like Cormac McCarthy, who did like No Country for Old Men and The Road. It's sort of the perfect combination and influence of those writers. And like I think his films were great. I saw Sicario 2 landed on somebody's worst films of 2018 list, and I was like,
You're not allowed to talk here anymore.
yeah, it was just like, what?
I haven't seen either of them actually.
They're great.
Who is that?
Those are called
Who's
trolls.
the actor in that?
The first one is
Benicio del
yeah,
Toro.
Benicio
Yes,
del
I was
Toro
thinking
and
Spanish name.
Josh Brolin, and Emily Blunt is in the first one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Emily Blunt is amazing in the first one.
yeah.
She had Edge of Tomorrow and Sicario in a year and got nominated for nothing. And I thought both of those were...
She should have been nominated for Quiet Place.
yeah.
She
Should've
she
been.
won like I think
Oh,
a
good
SAG
movie.
award or something
Yeah.
a week or two ago.
Yeah. I still haven't seen The Favorite, but that gobbled up a lot of spots.
Yeah,
So
I didn't see The
I'm
Favorite too, so I
suspect
can't
The
speak.
Favorite. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
And she's now Mary Poppins, right? That's
Yeah.
Emily Blunt.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Other big snubs for me this year, Suspiria remake. I think that should have been up for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actress, Tilda Swinton.
Would
Should
she
have been
be,
Best
I
Solid
believe that
Tom
would be
York for
Best
Radiohead.
Supporting Actor, if I can correct.
The politically correct.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. I thought I was gonna have to school Ryan Reed on. Actually, there's two categories, Ryan Reed. There's actor and actress. Also, Toni Collette from Hereditary that movie should have been up.
Yeah, and Toni Collette
performance.
particularly. That's an easy nomination. But horror movies are a weird gap in awards. When you have Get Out being nominated was a huge deal because it was sort of breaking a barrier there where you'll have great horror movies, great performances in horror movies, great directing of horror movies. Wes Craven for the first Scream not getting nominated was just that was a bad year for movies. He should have been nominated. He should have probably won.
Yeah.
And he wasn't. But that's a comedies and horror movies are always going to be an awards sort of black hole.
Do you want me to run through the list of the nominations this year, and
Sure.
so we can get your guys' picks?
Yeah.
We'll write these down and see who's right.
We might also have some questions for you. I don't
Yeah,
know if you've
sure.
seen Ryan on his phone over here.
No,
just
throw 'em
just
at
for
us.
audiences watching and you guys across the table, if you're like, is Ryan just like not interested in this? Ryan is writing his own list of questions for us to ask you guys.
That's
So,
right.
Just so you know.
We're turning the tables. The tables have been turned.
Sure.
Yeah, you guys
We
look
love
a
it.
little
I wasn't
nervous.
prepared. So
Sweating a little bit.
Nah,
should we
man, this is
switch
my thing,
chairs,
bro.
or-
Don't worry, we're amongst a company of friends here.
Did you want to throw them at us, or do you want
At
us
the
to-
end.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do the picks first.
All right. Should we do visual effects? Like, there's like 15 to 20 different categories.
Oh, let's
know if
do
that's just the top ones.
visual effects, editing, cinematography, director, and picture. How about that?
Okay.
Those are the ones that we know.
So visual effects is Avengers: Infinity War, which is like what? Christopher Robin, First Man, Ready Player One, and Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Ooh.
It's visual effects.
I think I'm going First Man on that. I read an article of how they did the moon landing scenes. I don't think I could retell it in this setting.
Did they bring Kubrick in for that one with all his experience?
No, I think he was busy that day. He was occupied.
I was waiting for that.
He's still in the editing bay working on The Shining.
First Man was the most disappointing film of the year. They took
Aw, rough.
a grand human achievement and made it into like a bummer personal movie that
Was it essentially, because I didn't see it, but was it essentially his like rough family life? And like what the family went through based
Yeah,
on his.
They tried to tell this big story about Neil Armstrong being a morose guy who lost a kid and was like finding himself on the moon.
It's
And
like,
I dug it.
Come
I dug
on.
it.
No, the last
people
half
call that.
hour.
I dug it.
The last half hour was a film representation of the greatest thing we've ever done, and it was sad.
yeah.
It was really sad.
Wow. That's interesting.
Not cool.
Interesting
But by
take.
the way, I'm throwing this on the calendar for March 8th. Apollo 11 IMAX
Yeah.
exclusive. That
Apollo
looks
11,
incredible.
Apollo 11, and The Right Stuff are the space movies of reference. The Right Stuff's one. Have you seen it? It's kind of an older movie. Definitely add that to your list.
But Apollo 11, was that the first time in space? Is that?
The Apollo 11 is the moon mission.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And they've remastered. They've done a like the World War I movie, but of all of the moon landing stuff.
No way.
Which, Herman,
Cool.
to just interest you, you should check out Room 237. It's a documentary about The Shining.
Yes, I've
And they
heard
go
about
into
it.
that The Shining could be Stanley Kubrick's confession to playing a part in the filming of the moon landing. Just watch it, sit on it, think about it for a little bit, and get back to us.
Yeah.
But Apollo 11 is a documentary where they've done, it might even be more than 4K scans, but they've like completely remastered footage all around the launching and mission.
Oh, wow.
And they're putting it into
They
IMAX.
rescanned film and cleaned it up, which
Wow.
the trailer is
Yeah, it's
unreal.
kind of
Okay.
breathtaking.
All right, I'll have to watch it. So I'm gonna skip costume and makeup, unfortunately, and original songs.
Best VFX, by the way. First Man is a good choice, but the
Film
Ready
editing.
Player One.
the correct answer is Ready Player One. I think this year.
You know, but those are two hard ones because they're the visual effects are very different, but both
Yeah.
very.
Christopher
Very
Robin
well
is an
done.
interesting pick. I'm glad that got nominated because that was great. A great use of invisible. That by the way probably also should have been up for Best Picture. That was a snub. That was really invisible effects. They all the stuffed animals felt like they were very real. It didn't feel fake or CG at all, and it was 100% CG. It wasn't puppetry or anything.
That's on my list of movies that I wanna I want to see that I did not get to see in the theater last year.
Best non-nominated movie, probably.
Yeah. I did think overall 2018 was a pretty bad year for movies.
And 2019 is shaping up to be.
2019, I think we will look back on 2019 and say this was the year of the movie.
We're just not
Even
sure
though
how
we
we're going to
haven't
make
even-
time.
We haven't even
much to see.
seen them. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're getting The Irishman. We're getting Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We're getting a new Ghostbusters movie. We're getting what else? I mean,
We're getting another Bond.
we're getting another Terminator
Bond.
movie.
Oh,
Like that's just insane.
is there a best documentary genre?
That's
Oh.
a big snub.
Yeah, the two
Biggest
best
snub
documentaries
of all time,
are nominated.
probably. Yeah.
The two best documentaries. So, Won't You Be My Neighbor, the documentary about Fred Rogers, not
I'm
nominated.
sorry, I'm out of here. Goodbye. That's.
Jake, did you cry? Be real.
I had to hold back tears for an hour and a
You didn't
half.
cry. You didn't cry, though. You held them
Very
back.
dusty.
You held them back.
Very
I don't cry,
dusty.
all right?
Herman,
Of course I cried.
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Pete,
Oh yeah.
did you cry?
Oh yeah.
Did we cry?
We
cried.
Me and my wife just
cried.
sat there on the couch.
I saw it
just-
twice, and I was like, second time in, I'm like, I'm not going to cry this time. I brought the kids, and it was like, oh, God, it happened again.
We didn't deserve that,
terrible.
man.
No, we didn't.
And we don't deserve them today.
The unluckiest person
But we
is
need
Tom
him.
Hanks,
We
who's
need
going to
him
be
more
playing
than ever.
Mr. Rogers in a movie this coming year. Because
Oh,
I
man.
think that documentary was so good that it's like, we don't need that now. Thank
yeah.
you. Thanks, Tom
we're
Hanks.
good.
And then They Shall Not Grow Old was
Oh yeah.
the best
unbelievable.
documentary in decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if
What's
we're
that?
now throwing foreign films into the best picture category, I think we should be able to throw best documentaries into the best picture category.
That was the best movie this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't stop raving about it. I've, urged friends to go see it.
Is it out on like full releases now in theaters?
It's
like,
in theaters
Yeah.
now.
current?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can-
It's you have to see it. But who's the dude from Lord of the Rings?
Peter
Peter
Jackson.
Peter Jackson basically rescanned like old World War I footage
Oh, right,
and made
right.
it 3D.
I saw
Yeah.
trailers for it.
And
It
if
looked
you see
amazing.
it, stay after the credits. There's a half an hour behind the scenes doc that plays after the credits, and it's awesome.
Unbelievable.
He's like, well, to
Yeah.
get the sound for the cannon, I went to my own personal World War I cannon
Happen to
collection.
own some artillery here in New Zealand, and we, it's
And I noticed
have
that
the outfits and
the colorists weren't getting the
uniforms.
green right in the like uniforms from this regiment.
So
So,
I pulled out
I pulled out from my closet
my
the-
uniform.
I think the most exciting thing about the success of that in theaters is that fingers crossed that we'll get to see like 2 or 3 more
yeah.
about other aspects of World War One, because
Like-
there's 100 hours of footage and I think 600 hours of audio interviews.
Yeah.
And he said he just wanted to tackle what it would be like for like sort of your everyday soldier, but they didn't tackle like Navy, Air, any of that.
Or
stuff.
like America or
American involvement.
different. Yeah.
I did search afterwards, and they are gonna recirculate all the stuff they cleaned back up as individual clips.
Oh,
so
so
that's gonna
cool.
go back out,
Cool.
which is awesome because they cleaned up way more than they used,
Yeah.
which is
That might be a great DVD,
Unbelievable.
like Blu-ray.
just have
Blu-ray
it for
and
history
release,
teachers
yeah.
and stuff.
I'm gonna predict for that category, which I'm forgetting what it was, the visual effects, that First Man's gonna win, just because, and that's probably gonna be the only one they win. Is gonna be my guess, because it's a super Oscars-y kind of movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Dominic Chazelle's had pretty great luck at the Oscars.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I,
Ready for film editing?
Yep.
Well, that's one we wanted to
yeah.
Yeah.
get picks for. Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, Green Book, The Favorite, and Vice.
My vote would be for Vice.
Vice also. Yeah.
I didn't see that one. I thought
should.
Black Klansman was pretty awesome.
Vice has the best comedic editing in years.
Okay, cool.
The editing and performances combined,
Cool.
but it's frame level just hilarious, like great. Every edit is exactly perfect.
Yeah.
We're doing cinematography?
Yeah,
Is
let's do that one.
So, Cold War, The Favorite, Never Look Away, Roma, and A Star Is Born.
I only saw
What's-
Stars Born out of
What's
that list.
cinematography about Star Is Born?
Concert scenes.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that also, like, Bohemian Rhapsody, shouldn't that be part, like...
Yeah, I mean, it could have been, and I think Roma is a travesty to be nominated for cinematography
Okay.
because it's one of those ones where it was an arbitrary black and white movie.
Gotcha.
And
I hate that.
yeah, and it's also color for black and white, where it just doesn't look right because it's clearly color video turned black and white, and
Yeah.
it doesn't look the same as black and white film stock. It's not as contrasty, and I mean it's competently shot, but there's nothing special about the cinematography in it.
So they just took color and
Turned
just
it
like,
black
let's
and
make
white,
it black
and they were
white.
like, "Oh, it's my memory."
Do you want lead actor? And there is one for lead actress.
Yeah.
Christian Bale for Vice, Bradley Cooper, A Star Is Born. Really? Bradley Cooper? You think? All right. Anyways, Willem Dafoe at Eternity's Gate, Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Viggo Mortensen, or in the words of Mac, Viggo Morgenstein.
That's a really hard list.
Sorry, I was forgetting Bradley Cooper was Bradley Cooper. I was like,
Okay, I was
I
gonna
don't
say
know
you need to see
why.
the movies. Why
no.
pass
You know what's
judgment
funny
on
is
this?
in my head it was like a musician playing an actor, like if Adam Levine was up for Vector. But I was like, wait, no, it was an actor playing a musician. So
I'm going to go with Rami Malek hardcore on this one because Bohemian Rhapsody has the great concert scene, but it's a bad movie.
yeah,
That's up for Best Picture because of his performance as Freddie Mercury.
okay.
That is not a good movie.
Can you run through the picks again?
Vice, A Star Is Born, At Eternity's Gate, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Green Book.
It's Christian Bale, right? The real winner is Christian Bale. Christian Bale played in...
Christian Bale, but Vigo was great in Green Book. Got the biggest pop laugh of the year
Yeah,
when he smacks the guy in the face over the piano, and the
Yeah.
next shot goes to the
He's
piano
playing the
player.
right brand.
Yeah, just smacks him in the face. He's like a street guy from New York.
okay.
But yeah, I'm gonna say, like the weight gain and like the whole taking
He's
influence
invisible.
from the devil.
He's invisible.
Christian Bale is my vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know about that one?
I've heard things here and there, but
Like he gained a ton of weight to be. Is that the Dick Cheney one?
Yeah.
Eight
Yeah.
pies,
so he.
not a bad life.
I mean, none of that was just added on. Like he got that big.
He had to wear some prosthetics, but not much.
That's
Yeah.
that guy's not going to live very long if he keeps
Going-
doing that to himself,
All over the place with his weight.
back and forth. Like
He's committed to the craft.
Yes.
Hey down. All right, lead actress Yalitza Aparicio from Roma. Glenn Close, the wife. Is she? She has like 1 million Oscars, right? Or is she the one who's like?
She's generally considered great, but I don't think she has a million.
she's
Who's
not-
the one? Who's the older
Meryl
one?
Streep,
Meryl
are you thinking
Streep.
of?
She's the Oscar
Yep.
queen. All right. Olivia Colman, The Favorite. Lady Gaga, A Star Is Born. Melissa McCarthy, Can You Ever Forgive Me?
Again, most of these movies I didn't see, so I don't feel.
How did you not see these? I feel like you saw
The Girl in
every
Roma was
movie.
great. I'll say that.
But I feel like from what I'm gathering from the other awards, it's going to go to The Favorite. It's probably
Yeah.
The Favorite or Glenn Close.
I think we need to force ourselves to watch The Favorite.
Yeah, I think we should go see it.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, that and then Best Picture is Black Klansman, Black Panther, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, A Star Is Born, and Vice. I have to say this is probably the first year where I know at least 3 of the movies and have seen 2 of them. But other years it's been like what? I
Run
don't
through
know.
it one more time.
All right, so the Black Panther,
Yeah.
Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, A Star Is Born, and Vice. Having only seen Black Panther and Black Klansman, I don't see how, like, maybe Best Picture is like just so, I don't know.
Well, there are weak
But-
years and strong years. So
Yeah.
those are the best movies of this year.
Yeah,
You know?
I feel like Black Klansman's the first movie in I think ever that gave me a feeling I had never felt in my life after seeing a movie.
Yeah.
I have the same reaction to that movie, so I think. And again, this is not like what I think is going. This is not like an Oscar predictions. This is like our picks.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Black Klansman.
What do you think? I'll wait for Ryan.
I think from a picks standpoint, I would go with Black Klansman. My favorite was probably Vice. Of
Ditto.
those movies.
Same
Okay.
here.
What do you think is going to be picked? Because I have a feeling Black Klansman is not.
I think Green Book or A Star Is Born is going to win.
Okay.
Probably A Star Is Born.
If the lobbyists Oscars is what they are,
Yeah. Had you
It'll
seen
be-
any other Star Is Borns before you had seen that one?
No.
A Star Is Born.
A Star Is Born. That's the thing about a remake, where it's just like I'm watching the whole end of that movie and I'm like, how are they going to kill him? How are they going to kill him? How are they going to kill him? Because you've seen it. Like A Star Is Born, the guy dies at the end every time and in different ways. And
Yeah.
it's just like, so that kind of killed the.
Sorry for
ending
the
me.
spoiler, but you gotta
Hey,
know,
we
you gotta know
gotta-
your
If it's
cinema
the
history,
fourth
you know?
time you're making
Exactly.
the movie,
You gotta
it's
know your
not a
cinema history.
spoiler.
If you're upset, you're upset. What are you gonna do?
Sorry, but this is the first time I'm hearing that this is a remake.
So Cradley Booper is he dies
Oh, no.
in the movie.
We lost control.
It's gone. Yeah.
Who? So what are the
Idiots are
previous?
running the asylum at this point.
What?
We're up crick.
Who are the other Stars Born like actors? Who? What? Are,
Chris
Barbra
Christopherson and Barbara Streisand.
oh,
Who was the 40s one? It was two famous people.
Was it Judy Garland?
Judy Garland and who was the dude? It was another famous 40s actor. And then the 20s ones were like studio actors that you haven't seen. But he dies a different way in every one. Yeah.
Interesting.
Gonna have
It's
to-
like of a moment. They
Is
always-
this one related to the opiate crisis?
Kind of. In a
Opioid.
way.
Opioid.
It's hard
But
to
now
say.
I feel like, geez, we're not. If you haven't seen it,
Oh, yeah, what are you gonna do?
if you
I
haven't seen it,
I'm ready and alert for these questions that you guys are supposed to be giving us.
Yeah, no promises.
I think I'm ready.
You look nervous, man. You all right?
Yeah, I'm all sweating.
I want to take a drink of water.
First-
Water.
first, I'd like to give you guys a gift. I've chosen 5 great movies that I don't think either of you have seen that you will love, and your listeners will love.
Oh yeah, we still have to ask you guys
Send that
The
to
top-
the group
the
text
top
that
ones.
Okay.
they're on.
but
First, Bicycle Thieves. Bicycle Thieves was filmed in Italy. It's a cinema verite film. So they're not actors in the movie, and it was filmed in a very quick succession, and it's wonderful.
what is it called?
Bicycle Thieves. Sometimes it's
Okay.
called The Bicycle Thief.
Okay.
It's one of those weird translation things.
okay.
The second one is Tokyo Story. Tokyo Story is from the 50s, and it's this beautiful... It's the first movie where every single frame from it you'd hang on your wall.
Oh, cool.
And it tells a very simple story, but it's deeply affecting. And it's one of the coolest movies I've seen in years because it feels like it could have been made today, but it was made 70 years ago or something like that. The next ones are, I'm going to give you minor films from big directors and big influences. The first one is Killing Zoe. Killing Zoe was made by Quentin Tarantino's early filmmaking partner. Stars,
Roger Avery.
stars
Also, the author of Phantasm 1999, a Phantasm sequel that never got made. Literally won the Oscar.
Why
for
aren't you
Pulp
making
Fiction. Won the Oscar for Pulp Fiction, and the next thing he set out to do was to make a grand opus Phantasm sequel.
Yeah.
You should make
But-
that.
And I think
Very
as soon as I
epic.
saw that on your list, I was like, that is an underrated director.
Okay.
He did the Silent Hill movie. He did one of my personal favorites, Rules of Attraction.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a great
Just
movie too.
phenomenal director.
But Killing Zoe is the best of his movies that I think most people have not seen. The next one is a director that you probably enjoy his current movies, but most people haven't seen this. This is where we got Daniel Craig for the first time, and it's called Layer Cake.
Okay.
Layer Cake is Matthew Vaughn's big opening movie. And Matthew Vaughn is the Roger Avery to Guy Ritchie.
Okay.
So Matthew Vaughn now makes the Kingsman movies.
Okay.
He's a terrific, terrific young director, and Layer Cake was sort of his start.
Yeah.
You know Herman would love that.
It'll be like you'll
Yeah.
just enjoy it. And then finally, this is like the lesser but still great movie from 70s crime dramas, Mean Streets. Mean
We've
Streets.
seen that one, right?
Yeah, we
Oh,
saw
you
that.
watched it? He's seen it?
I took him to the Coolidge to see that.
Oh, that's not fair. But
Jake
the reason
hasn't
why-
seen it,
The
so-
reason why I chose Mean Streets is it's a movie that a lot of people haven't seen. That you'll go, oh wait, from that other movie, this is what they were. It's one of those movies. It's like an origin of crime movies.
It's sort of how Goodfellas inspired filmmakers of the '90s, like the Favreau,
yeah.
Tarantino. And there's no director from the '90s that was not influenced by Goodfellas.
Yeah.
And I think Marty had the same effect about 20 years earlier with Mean Streets, where a bunch of movies that came after, like Mean Streets, is one of the movies that gets credited for the incorporation of modern music and rock and roll into the movie. Not that it hadn't been done before. Of course, like Easy Rider had a great soundtrack, but the way he uses it to accompany the story and like the rhythm, the editing, was really kind of made its mark on that.
Okay.
So those are my 5 movies that you probably haven't seen that I think you'd love.
All right. I'm on it.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the lightning round. Callie, would you like to be the questioner for the lightning round? Sure. Come on, lay it on him.
Viewers,
I'm tagging in.
ladies and gentlemen.
I'm tagging in. The next generation. They're all, whoa, yep. Just step over it.
We got
Have a seat.
Ryan's
They're right there.
We have
daughter.
Callie Reed,
The
which
best read.
in Herman's terms would be Rally Creed, right?
That's a great name.
No, it would be Rally Keed.
Oh,
Sorry.
you were bumming me out so bad. Why couldn't you just go with it? Why do you have to be difficult?
Sorry.
Sorry, Meter Perullo.
All right.
Best Adam Sandler movie.
They both have to answer.
Wait, how many questions are there?
Wait, we have to deliberate. We have to deliberate on what's a best Adam Sandler movie.
No. Wait, how many? It's like how many did you come up with?
There's probably a good dozen.
Okay.
Okay.
Best Adam Sandler movie. Happy Gilmore or The Waterboy. I can't decide.
You gotta pick a movie.
Yeah. What?
See, I can do this. I think Jake's gonna have a hard time. Jake's a thinker.
Yeah, I'm very
blank.
indecisive.
But I feel like the things, and this is, I don't really care how I'm coming off. The things to really think about it ain't your favorite Adam Sandler movie. You know what
I
I'm saying?
know that. I already answered it for you.
This might be controversial, but I want to say Mr. Deeds.
All right.
We're about to get a little Nicky.
Whoa. Adrian, get back.
Okay.
in the
Most underrated.
Flash.
The one where he's a dad. I forget what it's called. But
Daddy.
Big Daddy, yeah.
I'm going Punch Drunk Love or Billy Madison.
Of course you
Callie,
would.
Next question.
Of course you would.
Spell Bernstein Bears.
It's
This could be good.
BERENSTEIN.
You're one letter off.
I know, but that's because I was alive.
Replace
in
the
the
last
90s,
E with an A.
No, let's get
and
it.
it's
that it?
Berenstein.
Jake's got it.
I know you
Yes.
parallel universe
All right,
people.
Next question.
Or
I love that.
first rated R movie you ever saw.
Oh.
It was probably in Spanish on Univision when I was like 7 years old.
And it wasn't rated R.
Yeah,
No, it
like-
was probably made for TV.
no, that doesn't count.
No,
Rated
well,
R movie.
How about first rated R movie in a theater?
all right.
I can tell you mine.
I don't know. Go ahead.
In theater, what I can remember is my buddy's mom buying tickets for us to see Jackass.
Mine was 1994, Speed.
Callie, do you want to?
That was rated R?
You want to out yourself in case Mom's watching?
Um,
We by the way, just a couple weeks ago, we watched all of The Kingsman and then realized it was rated R afterward.
Okay. There's a.
Go on to the questions.
All right. Next question.
Best secret religious movie.
Oh. There's a football one. It's
Oh.
like Remember the Titans,
It's called
but
The Perfect Season.
no. It's-
Oh,
One came out a couple years
oh,
ago.
is it Facing the Giants?
yes, that's what it is.
I
Facing the
just
Giants.
saw that over the holidays.
Yep.
That one's okay.
Best secret Christian movie.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if this counts. M. Night Shyamalan's The Village.
We'll accept it.
Or
That's
The
the only one I can think of right
Exorcist.
now.
All right, next one, Cal.
All right. Ribeye or New York strip?
New York Strip.
Yeah,
That's
same.
what I got the other day.
I'm not,
Yeah, and I got the ribeye, and the ribeye was way better.
Oh yeah.
28 day
Oh,
aged.
yeah, but you know what's funny? It was better like as leftovers than it was live. It's as weird as that sounds. Like I don't know what happened, but I liked it better when I had it after.
I'm not.
Yours was too thick.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
eat
feel
my
like I got
steak
more
like a
bang for
man.
my
I don't
buck.
like the fatty steaks.
I mean, I got more bang for your buck since you treated
Yeah.
me.
All right.
I cut around the
All right.
fat.
Favorite sport?
Like to watch
Or
just
play.
No,
for the
favorite sport to play or yeah.
I think basketball for me.
Play recreationally. Yeah, probably basketball.
Football.
Best sport to like go have a good time is baseball, but
Favorite sport on TV?
golf.
Professional wrestling.
Golf. Like hate me all you want.
Or we are counting sports entertainment, right?
Okay. Sure.
Okay. Wrestling, then,
Fake
definitely.
thing.
we counting what do they call video games, like electronic sports or something like that?
Stream?
Esports.
Esports, yeah.
No, that's definitely not it. No, that's football to watch on TV.
Favorite baseball player ever?
I have to say Nomar Garciaparra, because as a child who was like growing up in the 90s and watching all the heartbreak of the Red Sox, he was like the icon. Nomar was just like, and everybody yelling Nomar and like all that stuff. And then I have to give it to him because in 04 when he was traded, it was like the biggest injustice in Red Sox history, I think. But he still got a ring, so it's all good.
I'm tied between two, and this is gonna make a lot of locals mad at me, but they're both Yankees.
Boo!
Next question, Callie.
Next
Just
question.
move.
Get him out of here.
Paul O'Neill and Bernie Williams.
Oh, come on.
What, yo, no love for Nolan Ryan?
Bernie Williams is your
favorite
favorite ice cream, vanilla?
Bernie Williams now an acclaimed like jazz guitarist though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
unbelievable. Yeah, I think he was up for a Grammy one time. Yeah,
Who is the greatest Dominican?
my mom's the greatest Dominican ever.
That's great. I'm gonna have to say Herman Diesla.
Yay! Also, best Dominican Kramer right here.
That was awesome.
Fact.
I love that.
Favorite cartoon?
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah.
Like I can't
Yeah.
I
like
knew we were gonna.
like
It is
whether
the
I'm
greatest.
sick or I need to be like just like kill some time or want to be extremely entertained. SpongeBob has always been there for me.
Yes.
Can you do your SpongeBob laugh?
It was
You
horrifying.
gotta shake that. That's what the guy does. I watched the behind the scenes thing.
Good to know you got some skills, though.
Hey,
What are you gonna do?
You sound like a tango.
Can I interrupt you? I have a question for the three of you.
yeah.
What's something you wish you knew when you were 10?
Adulthood.
Oh yeah, because
adulthood
you're
is
11
rough.
now, right?
I'm 10.
You're 10. All
I'm
right.
10.
This is a very meta question for her. But still going to need an answer, so.
The secrets to math to get everything right.
That it's okay to fail, and that just because you don't know what you're gonna do or be, like, doesn't mean that you can't. Like, that doesn't define who you are. Like, what you think you'll be in the future, what your goals are, what you want to be, your dreams, doesn't define you. Like, be who you are.
You're gonna let yourself learn a lot more than what you get in the classroom. There's a lot going on around you, and it's hard to take it all in, especially when you're 10. But you look back and you say, "Oh, there's a lot of experiences that I could have or should have been a part of. So
Also, be thankful, 10-year-old Herman, that you didn't have smartphones yet. Go outside and play.
Nothing.
That if I don't have a mansion in the Hollywood Hills by like age 30 and like a couple Academy Award nominations, it's okay. You'll be fine.
There's
more
always
important
40.
things.
There's always 40, baby.
I want to see what I'd be when I grow up. I just want to see.
What do you
What
want to
if-
be?
what
when you
if-
grow up?
Don't be in a rush.
I want to own here. I want to own here or be here
Own-
or work
own
here. Or do
rewatchable?
something here. Yes.
I could see that.
Rewatchable.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yes.
No rush though.
Oh,
Take your take your time.
All right, what's next?
it turned out. Okay. Oh, MJ or Larry Bird?
Michael Jordan without
Wow.
question, or anything.
Wow.
Kick them out of Massachusetts.
Is Magic Johnson a choice?
I guess so, but
But we're
Michael
not-
Jordan.
and real-
MJ.
Yeah.
Literally, there's an interview where Larry Bird and Magic Johnson say Michael Jordan is like the next of the greats, and then he surpassed them in every way, just in every way.
Yeah, but have some local pride, man. Larry Bird.
I did for Nomar. That's all good.
Larry Bird is just
Just gonna throw this out there while he's thinking. Barry Laird is. It works.
yeah. As a local, I mean, Larry Bird is just he's up there with Bill Russell, one of the greats. But there's a reason you call other sports icons the Michael Jordan of their sport. It is what it is, unfortunately.
What's next?
Okay. Can you put the water over there in a Philly accent?
Put the what?
Can you say
Can
put
you
the water over there in a Philly accent?
Yes. Put the water over there.
Yeah, can you put the water over there?
Yay.
That's a
Put
Philly
the water over
accent.
there.
That's a.
Ooh.
I.
Yay, Pete.
It's one of the most studied accents in all the world. I actually saw this article last night. Because it ranges from neighborhood to generation, words change.
Yay, Pete. You get the water
It
about
was like Philly CBS local.
Was that from your Facebook Philadelphia thing? Is that where you saw that?
Yeah, somebody posted
No.
it to the Philly Offensive, actually.
That sounds like Canadian mixed with Pennsylvania Dutch.
No,
be.
it's the Philly accent's like Pennsylvania Dutch.
Okay.
Like, yeah, what are you doing over there? Like, me and my brother and my friend Jeff, we all just send videos back and forth of just saying that one line. Like, yeah, what are you doing over there? We'll throw filters on it, like, yeah, what are you doing over there?
What is the first movie you have loved?
I have loved. Whoa. So yeah, I asked you guys to prepare things, but we didn't prepare things, and that's why it's like lightning round. I think Saving Private Ryan. For me, I think I was like 12 or 13 the first time I saw it, and it was like in my aunt's living room with my cousin, and no one else was like, no adult supervision to be like, why are you watching this bloody movie? And it just, the reaction to everything, it's the first movie that desensitized me to gore and like all that kind of stuff. So I have a great appreciation for it. I have to see it again. I don't think I've seen it in maybe 15 years. Or
I thought
10
they were
years.
going to re-release it for a 20th anniversary last year, so I kind of held on to watching it at home because I was like, this would be great to see again in the theater, but it
Yeah.
hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. So I have to say I love it for that. It kind of like made me grow up. As weird as
The
that sounds.
reaction we got when we saw Black Klansman, that kind of like silence at the end when
Yeah.
the distress flag is up, that's like a little. I had a similar one for Saving Private Ryan, probably a little even more powerful than Black Klansman. It was
Okay.
a dead silence for like 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because Adam Sandler's not in that.
Adam Sandler is like my go-to. Like I need to be in a happy place. No pun intended. But yeah.
Mine would probably have to be Rocky.
Oh. I heard one of the greatest speeches of all time yesterday, thanks to Ryan Reed, because of Rocky.
Is it from the Rocky Balboa, or
Yo,
it is a good speech? It's a
it's
great
the best
speech.
Rocky movie.
You think so?
Rocky 4.
Oh, that's highly debated, but
Ryan
I'm
said
almost-
Rocky 4 for those who didn't hear.
Yeah.
All right,
agree.
Callie, what's next?
Is it? You have anything?
Tip.
That's it?
Mm.
All right. Well,
I don't know if I have anything.
so
Is there
let me
anything
just
that-
recap your best picture pick.
'Kay.
What is it?
Black Klansman.
Black Klansman.
Both
Okay.
for both of you, right?
What's
Yeah.
your best picture of the year, Callie? What was your favorite movie you saw this year? Lean into the mic.
I have 3, and there. I guess it's 3.
Lay 'em on us.
Mission Impossible: Fallout,
Yes.
Yep.
Ready Player One, and Robin Hood.
Solid picks.
I loved Robin Hood.
I didn't
so
see
much.
Robin Hood.
It was, in my perspective, it was great. It was great. I was just like, I like that type of movie. It was great.
Kind of just like fat. I assume it's like kind of a fast-paced action,
Yeah.
Robin Hood.
kind of like a relentless.
Yeah, there's
pace.
one scene in that I just love. One scene. I love it.
All right.
Awesome.
Did you see King Arthur?
Yeah.
Did you like that
We
too?
haven't finished it.
Okay.
But I liked it. I liked what we've seen so far. So it's good.
It seems like those movies would go hand in hand, even though I haven't seen Robin Hood. It seems like you could play those back to back.
Yeah.
They match. They're
Yeah.
the same style.
Great double feature.
How about last thing, real quick? Movies we're excited for this year.
Yes. I'll start the new Bond movie that's coming out.
Are we getting Bond 2020?
Yeah, I think it is 2020.
It is?
Yeah.
I thought it was end of 19. Well,
2020.
It's
never
a long
mind.
time to wait.
Calendar year. All right. I'll hand it off. to you.
So many. I feel like I should almost pull up a list.
Mhm.
Um,
Ryan, do you have one, or do you need a list?
If RoboCop comes out this year, the new RoboCop 3.
RoboCop 3.
I'm pulling up upcoming 2019 movies, and I can tell you The Irishman's top of my list.
I'll put
I've waited
that up
20.
there.
Well, I guess we did get a gangster film in the form of The Departed, but I think this will be a little. What they say so far, it's going to be. I kind of actually wish it was in the structure of like Goodfellas and Casino, because those are two of my favorite all-time movies. I actually saw Casino last week in the theater twice.
I
3
know.
hour plus runtime. That's commitment to one of your favorite movies. I could do like 10 podcasts just talking about how great Casino is and why it's so great.
We'll think about it, Pete.
Okay, man. You let me know. So here's a list of the 63 most anticipated movies. The Upside and Glass, which are out.
Did you say 63?
Yeah.
Let's just read the top 5 and see.
Well, there is no top 5. It just goes. I want to see Alita Battle Angel, which is out. Came out this
Oh,
week.
yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
a teaming up of Robert Rodriguez and James Cameron. How could that not be the most fun movie of the year?
They're marketing that heavily. Looks really good.
I know Tarantino's new movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, is that going to be a sequel, prequel, or anything to Once Upon a Time in Mexico? Or
No, Tarantino is a big fan of the films of Sergio Leone.
Mhm.
And he actually gave Rodriguez the idea. He's like, you should name this Once Upon a Time in Mexico instead of Desperado 2, because, so
Desperado's a
I
great
think it's
movie,
just
by the
his
way.
kind of, his tribute to Sergio Leone. Just like the Inglourious Bastards, like I think the first chapter or the second chapter is Once Upon a Time in Nazi-occupied France. So it's just kind of keeping with that that similar theme.
Okay.
Ryan, are there any other movies that you know that are coming out? I feel-
Episode 10 is another Abrams one. That's kind of
Episode 10.
the Pet Cemetery remake, It Part
What?
2, It Chapter 2,
Okay.
Dumbo, Tim Burton's Dumbo
Oh, yeah.
movie looks great.
We're going to make Dumbo dark now. This is Dumbo's even more depressed, but he
You
stays
can make
depressed.
What's the movie they gave to Tim Burton and he just made it all Tim Burton-y?
There's Charlie and the
Chocolate.
Chocolate Factory.
Was it that one?
John Wick Chapter 3.
Oh, that one I'm excited for.
Isn't it? Oh yeah.
Trailer, by the way.
Already, there's a trailer.
Yeah, yeah. Super Bowl, right?
Cool.
Yeah, Super Bowl.
It's so good.
Alright.
Child's
Yeah.
Play. Toy Story 4, which they said
Oh,
is
yeah.
even more emotional than Toy Story 3. And I
What?
can't even fathom how that's possible because Toy Story 3 had me like,
Oh, I've been
why is my
watching the
face
trailer.
quivering? Why is my face quivering?
All right,
The Child's Play reboot, remake.
which is Chucky. For
Oh.
those of you, yeah.
The Chucky movie. I don't really care about The Lion King. Like, I'll go see The Lion King, but I'm not like incredibly excited for The Lion King. I don't know.
It'll be
Or
interesting
Aladdin.
to see how they do the adaptations of the extra, the live action things.
Herman, I
So-
know you're stoked for Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw.
Yes, I am.
Oh,
The
that's
Rock.
an
I think we
interesting
all
one.
are.
The Rock
have you seen
and
the,
Jason
Have you seen the
Statham.
trailer for Hobbs and Shaw?
I have, yeah. I think
They've
wasn't
gone
it
full
during the Super
sci-fi
Bowl?
with the Fast and Furious.
That's really
Idris
cool.
Elba's like a robot sci-fi.
Really?
Yes,
Oh.
it's full-blown sci-fi.
Wow.
Wow.
They no longer exist in the world. Although the Fast and Furious 5 with the runway that would have had to be like 100 miles long for
Yes.
the time to work, that might have been where they jumped that.
The Joker movie.
Yeah.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
not. That
Oh,
wouldn't. That's never gonna be the same without
Is that
Ledger,
with,
in my opinion.
well,
Joaquin
Joaquin
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
oh,
It's a character study drama though.
okay.
Marty produced it.
Because
Scorsese.
there's supposed to be one with
Yeesh.
Jared Leto, and they
Yeah.
canceled it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
never liked
Zombieland
him.
Double Tap.
That'll be fun.
So for
Oh.
sequels,
Zombieland?
Is the
Zombieland 2.
Ghostbusters 3 coming out this year?
I don't see it listed here yet.
Oh yeah, Frozen.
The Terminator movie
Okay.
with Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
All right.
Doctor Sleep, which is
Oh,
a sequel to The Shining.
that's grown up.
Danny Torrance.
Scary.
Kingsman 3.
I hope Kingsman 3 is we're back to the good stuff, and Kingsman 2 was oh, it's just a bad sequel.
Herman and I disagree on Kingsman 2. I thought it was great. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I fell asleep because we had a long day that day.
yeah.
I don't know. Well, I
like the first
I
one
did
better,
too for a little
but I
bit,
like
but I can't bring myself to respect Channing Tatum as an actor, and I don't know why. I feel like he's
Channing
just eye
Tatum.
Or his
candy.
failure to elevate the G.I. Joe films
Yes.
to the level that Marky Mark elevated the Transformers series.
Yes. I would put those two guys in the same
Yeah.
category for me.
December
Mark
is looking
Wahlberg and
stacked,
Channing
though.
Tatum.
Yeah,
December we have
No
Jumanji
way.
2.
Yes, there's
Or as
also
I
going
like
to
to
be
say,
Life of Pi-
Jumanji.
Jumanji.
We got
Yeah, you all
Masters of
said
the
Jumanji.
Universe.
Yep.
We have the new Star Wars.
Yeah. Is that
Like-
named yet?
No, right now it's just
Episode 10.
It's Everybody Dies, Star Wars 10.
No, it would be episode 9, right?
episode 9. Yeah. So
And then everybody comes back. Episode 7 of Marvel. Not episode. They don't do it.
Well, there's probably only one movie that I'm going to see in theaters this year. And that's probably going to be the final How to Train Your Dragon. And that's it.
Interesting.
Those are good movies. Those
Interesting.
are good movies.
you're not going to see Avengers Endgame?
Oh yeah.
You know how far behind I am in those
It
movies?
doesn't matter.
That
You don't
does
have
not
to
matter.
really.
I'm too OCD to. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You don't have to know.
I
But
was
I
surprised,
understand.
fellow movie trailer fans, that they released the Spider-Man trailer before Avengers came out.
Because you know what's gonna happen. So why do you do that?
Yeah, why would you do that?
Why do you do that?
Why would you do that?
That's spoiling.
You just have
'Cause
to
you
use
can.
your imagination. Just pretend that it never
he's,
happened.
He's dust right now. He's dust.
He's
he doesn't
dust.
exist.
But then he's there and he's
Are they going to use
two things at once.
odds that they use the Dust in the Wind song for one of those?
I doubt Kansas is
But it's going to be like a girl on an acoustic guitar and it's really slow. You know it, Pete. You know it's going to happen. On that note,
Anywho.
this was the Life After College movie podcast. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
We'll
Bye,
see you
everybody.
soon.
See
Cue
you
the
next
music.
time.
Boop-a-doo, 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 boop-a-doo.